Hello, this is the May video chat. I'm just gonna have everything all as one video this time. I'm behind on everything because unfortunately I'm having to do too many things like every day now. It's just like I was the process was I was getting stuff done on the next game dungeon, and then that list thing came up, and I meant to do that a week earlier than I did, but I figured, oh god, I gotta get this out. So I did that, and then throughout this time, right now it's Stop Killing Games, the European Citizens Initiative. It's in a place where if we don't, or if I don't, I guess, make a lot of outreach towards non-English other gaming YouTubers, essentially, I think it's done. I think it's not going to happen. But I have been doing a lot on that, and it's gearing up almost like a factory machine. And we have one or two deals set to go. They haven't started yet, so there's a little bit of delay on it, and I'll have to see how effective they are. But I've been looking at hundreds of channels trying to figure out like who might be a good fit to have a sponsored message on. So I mean, I think once we have a few mystery sponsors willing to fund these. So, well, I don't know what their limit is. I have like a rough idea, but maybe if we have more success, maybe they pay more. I'm just going to keep doing this until we run out, essentially, or I'm convinced the numbers aren't going to make it. I'm in a frustrating spot because if I knew it wasn't going to happen, I would just stop this and get back to the regular videos because I'm so far behind on them. But if this final strategy works, then this changes everything. So, yeah, okay. I have a question for the chat. When I'm looking through these channels, I'm going through a few criteria, making sure they're a certain size, that they cover gaming to some degree, that they're not in English because that they'll be far less targeted than without that. One thing I'm uncertain of is chat, what do you think? Should I exclude like Minecraft or Fortnite centric channels? Because we don't want to target minors. You need to be old enough to vote in order to, in your prospective country, which I think ranges from like 16 to 18, depending on the country, in order to qualify. And even then, young people aren't known as much for voting. I mean, this isn't exactly voting, but it's something more boring than I'm wondering if I should just skip those channels entirely because I look at the thumbnails of them and some of them seem like they're obviously targeted towards kids. I mean, regardless of what they say. But others are like, well, this is more like generic Minecraft. I don't know. Or I'm wondering if, okay, somebody's saying not exclude Minecraft. Fortnite, yes. Okay, so maybe I'll just start excluding. If it's a Fortnite-centric channel, I should maybe just exclude it, like, on principle. Because some of them, the thumbnails are so obvious, it's like, it's almost like they're probably for, like, toddlers or something. I mean, they're obviously not marketing that officially that way, because then they would lose out on a lot of revenue. But, I mean, if you look at the way it's presented, it's got to be for, like, teens at the latest. Probably younger kids. So. Okay, so give Minecraft a chance and just cut Fortnite, seems to be what the chat's saying. Okay, so Minecraft will be more discretionary. Like the more, like, not just a cartoon, but like a cartoon that you might show to like a 6-year-old or something. If they have that kind of presentation style on the thumbnails, then I'm getting real suspicious. So, let's see. But yeah, I'm just grinding away on that. And then thankfully I'm getting help from several translators. I still need to secure one or two more. The main languages we've been targeting are French, German, Italian, Polish, and Czech, and maybe Romanian. We haven't been, I mean, if there's a real good candidate, we can do it, but I haven't been looking at Spanish or Portuguese, mostly because most of the speakers aren't in Spain or Portugal, so it's a similar problem as English. where only a small minority of the people watching that are going to qualify to sign it. But yeah, that's going to devour my time for like the next day or two. And then after that, I hope it'll be on a slower burn where I basically just kind of act as a broker between the sponsor and the creator. But I mean, it's still disruptive for like my workflow and working on everything. But we're kind of in like the last chance for this. Yeah. So if there's any confusion, I'm assuming without this, the European Citizens Initiative fails, and because we just can't get enough people to sign it. But I also think our biggest problem is not enough exposure by people who qualify to sign it. So it's like I think I'll know within the next week or two how viable this is. I mean, based on because if we could get like a bump of like 20 to 30,000 per like medium or larger sponsor, there might be enough money from the sponsors to just do that again like 20 times and get over the threshold that way. Oh yeah, there's something else I want to mention. There was another European Citizens Initiative on a more serious social issue, but they were hovering around 400,000. Theirs ended recently, and just within a couple days before it ended, they had this massive influx of signatures, and they won. They got over the limit, the threshold, to 1.2 million, just through this flood at the very end. Now, I want to taper people's expectations. I don't think anything unless there's something completely unknown to me, I don't think anything like that's going to happen for ours. My theory is as to what happened is maybe they tallied all the physical signatures at the very end, and then they all got processed at the very end. That's why there was a giant surge. That's the only thing I can think of. Either that or there's some trick to it. Unfortunately, we don't have the manpower for physical signatures. That was a whole lot more responsibility on the organizers, and they weren't equipped to handle that. Plus, I'm not sure we would have missed out that many, because the amount of gamers that are willing to sign this but aren't willing to do it online, I think that's probably going to be a low number. But yeah, I'm trying here. I'm trying. And again, it's frustrating because part of me is thinking, okay, well, if it's going to fail, I just want to cut my losses and just try to salvage my channel, essentially. But if it's going to work, then I need to go all in. So I'm just kind of with what I'm working on. But I'll just keep working on things one way or the other. Game Dungeon out as soon as I can manage, but I am behind on it. Yeah, that's the other thing with the Game Dungeon. I'm doing the follow-up, and I'm trying to decide if I just want to cut it to just the most interesting ones, or I don't know, if the flow is going well, I might just even just do 2, because there's so much crap to cover. So I don't know. I'm undecided. But yeah, I'm still working on things. And I think that's all I have for announcements. I might be forgetting something, but that's all I can think of off the top of my head. Okay, so the top question. Do you feel socially isolated in the place you currently live? Also, how long did it take to grow your hair? How often do you cut it? How do you get it cut? Well, I guess the hair is easier. I mean, I don't know, several months. My hair grows fast. I cut it every few months. I really just kind of take the end of it and just sort of cut it so it's not getting caught on things. Because past a certain length, the hair, just through normal activity, the hair gets caught on things, like under my arms or, under a backpack or something. I don't quite like it that long. So I'm not going... I was going to say I'm not going the ZZ Top route, but I can't remember how long their hair is versus their beards. Their beards are what they're known for. But let's see. So I feel socially isolated. Yeah, I mean, I need to learn a lot more Polish to be able to connect more. But I look at it a lot like least worst option, because that was kind of happening to me before I moved to Poland, because my friends were just kind of one by one moving to someplace else. And until I was just kind of last man standing. So by the time I moved, I didn't have much keeping me down. Uh, I mean, for a while we were meeting up with this group for other English speakers, but then that got canceled essentially. So, and then the pandemic happened afterwards. So now it's just kind of, I mean, I'm going out every day, but I'm not really talking to many people. So it's really just going to exercise in the forest and getting groceries or miscellaneous chores. So yeah, not an ideal state, but yeah, I meant to look it up. I thought about it. I'm not sure I can even afford to live in an English speaking country long term now, because I mean the big ones are, the USA, the UK, Australia. I guess Malta speak English. I mean, there's others that have. I guess Sweden has a lot of English speakers. I'm not. And my standard of living and expenditures are below like what would get me by in other countries. So, Ireland, yeah, Ireland. Someone's saying India. Well, maybe certain parts of it. That is a thought. With with India, I would think it'd be more like kind of enclaves or something like that. But you're right. Okay, so maybe India, but India is really hot too. But yeah, so I need to learn more Polish, I guess. This is the moral of this story. What's the most cyberpunk thing you think you'll probably get to see within your lifetime? Well, I think they're having some progress with what, like intercepting brain signals. Like, I think there have been experiments where they've been able to get blind people to see like a dot or things like, or like very simple shapes or objects. But we might see some more stuff along those lines. I think one thing that would be, well, I don't know if it'll be like cybernetically controlled, but I think for older people or people who are kind of disabled, especially, having kind of like, you see the movies where it's like they have like super soldiers and these metal exoskeleton frames. Well, it seems like that might actually be very practical for if you're old or where you can move, but like your joints are in bad shape and stuff, so you need help getting around, or if you're kind of like partially paralyzed or something like that. I I think that's a potential market, really. Like, or we could have more low tech versions of that. Like, I'm pretty sure it was just comic book movie logic, but I remember in was it The Dark Knight Rises? Bruce Wayne is getting a special brace because his knees are completely shot from fighting people and jumping as Batman. So he gets this special brace that hurts, but then it makes him a lot more mobile again. Pretty sure it doesn't work like that the way it does in the movie, but with enough extra, with enough extra equipment, and maybe if it was powered, you might be able to have something like that. So somebody's saying no, don't waste resources on old people. Well, I think basic mobility. I mean, there's a difference between having like a metal frame on a battery versus like a heart transplant. The amount of resources for, and plus, like that could get passed. This could get reused too. So it's, yeah. So I don't think that's such a bad use of resources. What are some other cyberpunk things? Yeah, somebody's mentioning wet bulb temperature in India. Yeah, if that hits, maybe it does. I think it does hit that some days. Yeah, they lost a lot of wheat. It was like a year or two ago during summer, basically because of heat. So yeah, that would be really rough. My heat tolerance already isn't the best. I mean, Like if I had to choose between too hot and too cold, it'd be no brainer for me to take too cold. Um, see more cyberpunk stuff. Well, I mean, VR is getting better and better. What's another cyberpunk thing? Well, actually, augmented reality. I heard there's a YouTuber. He's like an engineer. I forget his name. I can maybe have a link in the description if people want. But he was talking about the analysis of VR, and he was saying that Meta hasn't. They've been basically every single VR device they've sold has been at a loss. And he was saying the reason is because they're essentially trying to pave the road for augmented reality, which they're foreseeing as a gold mine. And maybe it is because I can think there's probably a lot of jobs where augmented reality, if it's done really well, could enhance workflow or be incredibly practical for all kinds of things. So if you're in there first and you have the market share, that might be a long-term payday. So VR is almost like the stepping stone for them and just the incidental thing that's happening that for what they're really after. But they're still trying for it. So somebody wants me to sing them happy birthday 25 times. No. But happy birthday, I guess. Don't feel obligated to spend it all here because you could probably do better than just me doing the video chats for your birthday. Let's see. What else is cyberpunk? Well, I guess, you know, we might actually see that kind of retro 80s look come back for some styling things. Oh man, if I can find the link, I'll put that in the description. There were these prototype cars at a trade show, I think like last year or something, where they were going for that like retro 80s futurism. And they look pretty slick. They look like this. They look much more impressive than the Cybertruck. And yeah, that might make a bit of a comeback. These things were really stylish, but I forget the names of them. I'll have to look them up sometime. But we could see we could see 80s sci-fi styling make a comeback. Actually, with my keycaps, I've got the ones I have now are kind of 80s-ish, where they're kind of big and chunky. I like how they feel. So, yeah, we'll see, I guess. Are there any games you regret not playing when they were new? Yeah, then somebody below that put online games that got killed. I mean, yeah, that's the main one. Let's say I put a few. Darkfall, because that was one I was curious about, and that one's, there is a proof of concept emulator for it, but it's pretty rough. Actually, one I forgot about, but then I remembered when I was on Josh Strife Hayes' show, because he brought up Otherland, because that one was another MMO that looked pretty exotic. It keeps coming up again and again, but The Crew, actually, because I played it like a year or two after it came out when I waited for the price to drop enough. But they changed the lighting by that time. And some of it's a mess. Whereas if you look at the original lighting, it's more consistently good. Like in some places, the later lighting is better, but like on average, I would have taken the original lighting better. So playing the original version might have been nicer. And I mean, I probably never would have gone for the subscription fee, but I would have liked to have seen in World of Warcraft, was it Kazakh the Stormwind? That's the one where they lured this giant demon into like one of the main capital cities, and he just started attacking, killing everybody. Like it was basically an incident that wasn't supposed to happen, and it just looked awesome. I would have loved to have seen like like everything leading up to it, and just seeing it happen from like all the angles and that sort of thing, and people freaking out. That would have been a lot of fun. I guess the other incident I've heard of in World of Warcraft that I would like to have seen is well, actually maybe I can now with WoW Classic because there's probably a lot better recording. Is the was it the Gates of Ankura opening? You know, it was this giant event where this new kind of mystical zone in the desert opened up, but it required just an insane amount of resources that took players like weeks to band together to open. So that seeing that open probably would have been pretty impressive. Yeah, I should maybe check for that for because it happened again in WoW Classic because that all got repeated, and by the time WoW Classic was around, you have way better screen recording. So. I guess those are the main ones I can think of. I mean, obviously, if there's a game that's really fun but the player base has fallen off, would qualify. But I don't do as much multiplayer now. Well, oh yeah, well actually that's an easy one. Well again, I never bought the DLC. I just grabbed the free copy when they're giving it away. But Destiny 2, because yeah, they've vaulted the DLC. The thing about man, I have such mixed feelings about that term because if they're not lying, then okay. I mean, it still sucks. I don't. I'm not defending the practice, but if they do eventually bring it back, then it's like okay, then it's okay calling it vaulting. But if they just decide later, nah, we're just gonna shut down the game, then there was a lie. They just got rid of it. But yeah, there's multiple DLCs that Destiny 2 got rid of essentially. So yeah, obviously missing it. I should maybe replay that because I played Destiny 2, the main campaign. Geez, I was in the old apartment, so maybe 2019, something like that. So if it's changed a lot since then, maybe I should replay it because it's a different campaign now. So I don't know. Yeah, but I'm saying Bungie seems like a total mess. I've heard about that marathon stealing the art assets. And I think this is at least the second time they've gotten caught stealing art assets or heavily plagiarizing. Because I think they might have done that for the Destiny 2 icons or something. Or maybe I'm mixing up the chronology. But yeah, it's a bad look when you're a major publisher and then you're cheaping out on paying your artist or just stealing from them, you know. That's a very bad look for a major company. Okay, so I'm saying that first main campaign was bad. Well, my impression, if it's what I played in 2019, it wasn't bad so much as just it was kind of I felt like I had no context to anything. And so it's just like, okay, here's a bad guy, but then we have to commune with the spirit to unlock the nexus or something. And like, okay, go. So I never knew what was happening pretty much at any point in the game from what I remember. But the locations are pretty impressive. I mean, they had a lot of great levels that looked neat, but I had no context or connection to anything story-wise. And that's how I felt about Destiny 2, the old campaign. So, let's see. Do you have any plans on what the 100th episode of Game Dungeon will be? No, and I don't even know what number we're on. So, what game made you laugh the hardest ever? Could be intentional or not. I'm not sure, but I wrote down some candidates. Because a lot of the games that are pretty funny, they'll get like big grins out of me, but they're not like making me laugh so hard I can't breathe, or else I forgot which moments of them do that. And it sounds like my voice is going a bit, but it usually comes back when I do these. Well, for older ones, I remember liking Sam and Max Hit the Road a lot, but that one's a bit of a cop-out answer because the comic Sam and Max is funnier than the game. They kind of toned down the game for it. And I haven't played the newer Sam and Max ones because I might get to them eventually, but I was real disappointed by the voice acting because the voice acting in Sam and Max Hit the Road I felt like was perfect. So it was just kind of like, oh, the tone sounds all different now. It's like, this isn't as cool. It's like, I don't know. So that kind of disappointed me. But the games are probably good because there's been a lot of them since then. One I know I definitely laughed at was Beavis and Butthead Virtual Stupidity. Like when you go up on the roof and you're like hawking loogies at everybody down there. Yeah, like, and you hit McVicker and he's saying like, oh, it must be raining. And then when you hawk like a major loogie on his head, he like looks up and he's like, "Ooh, what the hell are you kids doing up there?" Like, I don't know. It was pretty solid, the writing in Beavis and Butthead Virtual Stupidity. For more recent, well, yeah, in the reply they mentioned Puzzle Agent. Puzzle Agent's way up there. I liked it a lot. Probably most recent one I have is High on Life. I was definitely laughing at multiple parts of High on Life. Not all the jokes land, but they have a lot to do. And the thing is that one's a little divisive because, like, I've seen people say they find this game so annoying and irritating, and I could see where somebody would say, yeah, I could see that, but I found most of it just fascinating and hilarious. So there's a couple scenes that are real gross that I didn't like, but it was only like one or two. So another one that it wasn't as consistent, but it had this one really just needed more content for the writing. Journey to the Savage Planet. The commercials in that are fantastic. Like I really enjoyed those. There's several. There's several. Did I lose my train of thought already? Yeah, I guess I did. Wow. So, Journey to Savage Planet. Commercial. I was thinking, man, God, I'm not good with the. So this is the downside of streaming. Like I'll start doing this, and then my brain just short circuits sometimes. Because I'm not like this in all things in life. It's just when I get to streaming, it can be like this. Okay, well the thought wasn't that important, whatever it was. Oh, that's it. Okay, yeah, no, I did remember it. There are several comedy games I'm meaning to get around to, but I haven't played yet. Like the South Park games, like, the Stick of Truth. Another one is Hector Red Badge of Carnage. What the hell is that other one? It's not Peripheral. Paradigm. Yeah, that was another one I plan on playing. That. So there's probably some more good stuff out there that I'm just not remembering. No, not remembering, but haven't gotten to yet. So, but yeah, if I just had to pick one, it might be High on Life. Put it like this: if that game is for you within the first 5 or 10 minutes. So yeah, if you're not into it after the first 5 or 10 minutes, you can give up on it. So it's not gonna take nosedives for the kind of comedy it has in there. It's pretty consistent throughout the whole thing. Let's see. Do you also get the feeling that game optimization has been steadily declining over the years? It's like the developers just said screw it and left it to the hardware to catch up. Saying, I'm wondering if this is just nostalgia speaking or if the industry genuinely stopped caring about performance. Yes, I do think overall optimization has been declining, but I think for the reasons for it, it's probably varied. 'Cause I have a few theories. I mean, one could, I mean, I'd say the leading theory would be developers are just continually put under pressure, so management sees that as another place we can just cut corners, saying, "Hey, we used to spend 2 weeks optimizing this, but people still bought the last game that we didn't. Yeah, just cut this. Now we can ship it out sooner and make our money sooner." And so that they just might not allocate the time for it. I think that's one possibility. Another is, I'm not sure about this. This is just a theory. I've noticed that, like with visual quality, sometimes the intensity for performance can increase like quadratically with the textures, or exponentially depending on what you're processing. And maybe it was easier for older hardware. Well, maybe not easier, but it could be. I've seen several games that I look at them and I think, like new games, and I'm thinking, if you told me this came out in 2015, I might not know the difference, And it could be that they're actually processing like maybe the shadows slightly sharper and I'm just not even noticing, or slightly more defined, that sort of thing. But that extra processing costs like 20 to 30% more processing power, but I'm just not even seeing the difference. Whereas there could have been more of a hard cap for games from 10 years ago that it all looks the same to me because the resolution's about the same and they still have good shader effects, but I'm just not even noticing those really tiny details, and those could be performance hogs. So yeah, maybe that's another aspect to it. Yeah, somebody's mentioning diminished returns. Yeah, it could be they're chasing that. Another theory, yeah, people mentioning FSR, DLSS. Another, well, I am going to talk about this in the follow-up episode to some extent. It could be that there are deals being brokered between, especially from NVIDIA, I would think, where they're essentially saying, hey, put our code in the game, or make sure you support this feature and we'll give you all this money because this will showcase our cars and make them look better than AMD. That is something they have done in the past. And that's what I won't go into detail on that because that'll come up in the follow-up. It flows kind of naturally into it in the follow-up episode. You can guess which game triggers that discussion. So it could be there's some payoff going for it where it's not that they're trying to unoptimize it, it's that they're trying to tote some feature that makes their cards look better, and that comes at the cost of performance. Ross, play the new Doom. Well, I'm in no rush to play Dark Ages, but I have played Doom 2016, and I played some of Doom Eternal. So, what? So that's another theory, but I think most of it's probably just like time limitations, especially for, well, no, new mandates from management is the better way to put it. Now for indie developers, it could just be them saying, screw it. Like, we got the game made. We're not going to worry about the optimization. And one game I can think of that, so that's the thing. I don't always know what's a lack of optimization and what's just a really demanding game, because sometimes what we might call, because there's different levels of optimization. One can be like real obvious stuff. Others can be basically genius level puzzle solving that you find some new ways of getting the game to work for less cycles that would have thought of, and that's all filed under optimization, but the latter can be like a higher standard most developers aren't going to go with. But so it's rare when I know there's a case that I know the optimization is not that good. And one example I can give is the game Broken Reality. That's the game. It's a great game, but I mean, the graphics are basically It's a Unity Engine one. The graphics are what you maybe could have expected in like a late 90s title, something like that. And especially like the later level, like I heard the fans of my card spinning like hell. And we're talking about, you know, a step above like Doom 93 graphics, you know? And so I know, okay, like there's no way in hell a level that looks this basic, has this few polygons, should be drawing that kind of performance. And I think what they were doing is there was no occlusion culling whatsoever. So they were rendering every single polygon in the entire map, whether you could see it or not. And there might have been other tricks to it also. So that's one where I figure, you know what, they probably had like limited resources, or they decided, hey, good enough. Actually, I was noticing that from, I was looking at benchmarks and screenshots to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, since my wife's kind of interested in that one. And I was noticing, wow, the requirements are kind of steep for that game. And that's one where I was looking at it and I was thinking, well, the game looks all right, but it's like, I don't know if like for what I'm seeing, I don't know if this really justifies like the performance hike. Because like if you compare the graphics to that, the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, to something like Crisis, the original, I mean, I think it'd be like a trade-off. Like okay, maybe it looks a little bit better in these areas, but like in Crisis, you can see the mountains in the distance. You know, there's all this vegetation, there's high textures, and like I don't know. I suspect there might have been like a lack of optimization on that title. So the chat is like 1 pixel to the left of where it should be. Oh yeah, well I can try and move it slightly. Let's see. Oh wait, no. Oh yeah. Okay, it's you know what? I'm gonna mess it up if I mess with it. I intentionally moved it so it wouldn't clip it off. So if it's slightly off, that's better than clipping the ends of people's sentences. But yeah, I'm not. I feel like there's some potential for optimization from what for the benchmarks I was seeing versus the screenshots, because I mean, I guess like the close up on the characters looks pretty good, but I mean, I've seen games with great looking close. Well, the one I keep thinking of is something like Death Stranding. That's a game that looks fantastic, and that for sure has far better performance. I haven't checked, though. I'm curious, like on the same hardware, what the benchmarks are. Yeah, if you ever want a good benchmarking website, I highly recommend GameGPU.com. Yeah, they're not paying me anything. I'm just because they have benchmarks for so many games, and they test it on so many different video cards and CPUs. It's one of the best I've seen. But yeah, I mean, what was it? NVIDIA got, they're of course trying to push the frame generation stuff. I mean, look, if the frame generation is custom tailored for a game, maybe it looks fine. I have no idea. I haven't tried any games like that yet, and I don't even have the newest stuff. But I have tested the more generic frame generation, the stuff that lossless scaling uses, and I look at it like duct tape. Like if you're just dying to get that higher frame rate, and you can live with artifacts which may vary with how significant they are, then it's a useful tool. But I think it's an awful standard. Like if a game's frame capped at 30 frames per second, yeah, I'm probably going to use that so I can get 60 from it. But yeah, it's yeah. So there's basic stuff with Well, I'll talk more about optimization in the follow-up, but it's yes, I don't think it's your imagination about it declining. The where it gets called into question is when the graphics are just utterly fantastic, you know, and you have no idea how many layers of shading and everything that they're doing. So, but even then, we've seen I really think Death Stranding is a great kind of test case for like, because I don't think Death Stranding uses real time ray tracing. I think it's all like raster graphics, and that game looks so good for it. So you have to. I feel like you have to compare the best of that to like whatever the most demanding game is, and then like look. I guess look at like how many polygons we're probably talking about for the scene, and then. So I don't know. Okay. If you had a monthly budget of $5,000, what would you do to increase your productivity? Man, where to start? I guess some obvious. Well, okay. I guess. Yeah, my mind's just going in several directions because what I need for finishing off Stop Killing Games to try to get us to the threshold is different from what I need for like Game Dungeon and Freeman's Mind, and that's different from what I would need for the movie. One sort of byline throughout it might almost be like to hire someone that could like work as like a secretary for me, that could basically have access to all like my emails and everything. So you'd have to hire someone to have a contract for something like that, because you can't just give away all your email, everything to a volunteer. Just to help me manage. Another thing that comes to mind, which would carry into the movie and Game Dungeon, would be kind of an assistant director role, which would be sort of like a project manager, but that could kind of fill in smaller things. Like, because again, like the little things can like add up for me. Because, yeah, like in that last video, the games list, I did all the graphics except the pie chart. And someone else helped me on that because, see, this is a very basic thing where they just took the entries, plugged in the data in Excel or something, and generated a pie chart from that. But see, I don't have the knowledge off the top of my head to do that, so I'd have to stop, go learn how to do that, then fiddle with it until I can produce it, and then see, that could take me like an hour or two trying to just that little thing. But even other little things like I went and hunted down the graphics that I wanted in the inserts, and I made the little list of the different definitions that I've heard for various things to show how confusing it is just talking about it. Yeah, and then I went and recorded the footage for playing the game to have the filler there. So that's the sort of thing that whole lot of that could be delegated if I was just kind of more on top of things with managing. But managing's very hard if you're also doing lots of other things. So being able to have help with that would be beneficial. Let's see, what are some sound in general? I'd love to be able to just record, hand the recordings to someone else, and then they'll take care of everything, or else tell me I need to re-record these parts. Like that would be the dream. Instead, there's a lot of steps to it that I am getting help on that, but I could get even more help with it. What are some other things? Well, monthly budget of $5,000, that could maybe open up a few more animation options for the movie, or maybe help us with some assets. But I'm not too worried about that part of it. Let's see. Yeah, I guess just more general assistance, because that's why I say like assistant director, because assistant director can mean a lot of things, but it can mean a lot of like miscellaneous tasks, or just kind of acting as guardrails if I'm getting something wrong or making a mistake, that sort of thing. Okay, I'll answer this since well, somebody already asked about the happy birthday thing. I gave an answer. So, somebody's asking, just since I noticed that it's not a bad question. Since you're so big about preserving games as high art, not necessarily. You know what? For our games art thing, I don't really have a horse in that race. If the public wants to call them cheap entertainment, fine. If they want to call them high art, fine. I don't care. I think they can be absolutely wondrous experiences that there's not really a parallel for. But if they're not considered art, whatever, you know. And even then, it's not. Stop Killing Games isn't about. It's not directly about preservation. It's about not making preservation impossible. So you know, if nobody cares about a game and it doesn't get preserved, Stop Killing Games, like the initiative, the European Citizens Initiative and legal action, won't change any of that. But what it will do is if somebody does want to back up that game, it'll let them, you know, it'll, you know, allow them to and not make it impossible. They say I assume you're anti the use of generative AI in the process of game development? No. Well, it depends on what it's being used for. I mean, like with, I mean, if it pays, if I'm happy with the results, I might use it for animation. No, not 2D animation, but I mean like the wireframe motions. Like, so if you have a guy chopping wood, look, I am crap at keyframing animations. The only reason Civil Protection looks as good as it does, and I'm not saying that's high quality necessarily either, is because I was using a lot of existing animations from the game and blending them together. If it comes to like actual keyframing, I am not good. So the AI is probably good. I would want to, I mean, I think there should be human quality control on it. But, so yeah, if the AI does generate something, and I'm just thinking, this looks weird and way off. No, we need to refine this or do it again or something. Or maybe we can't do the AI, use AI for this because it just can't figure it out. So yeah, but I mean, yeah, I'm for that. Now, if you're talking about like generating textures and stuff, I think it does cheapen the game. Like, I guess from a conceptual standpoint, it would have to get so good that like it doesn't give me that uncanny valley feeling. And almost all AI art I see, if I like look at it closer, it does give me that. Just something just feels off about it. And so if they're doing that to take shortcuts, I mean, I think the more that becomes a standard, the more you're looking at like a permanent quality loss for the industry. So, yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, I mean, if you're using it for the game, but see, it can be useful as like a tool for some. It can be useful in the same sense as that Photoshop is useful, because I mean I mentioned several times now. I've actually been using AI to take wallpapers I like and expand them, the size of them to ultra wide. But the thing is, it's not. That's all using the art. Every single wallpaper I have that I've been collecting like this, none of it. The foundation of it, none of it's AI generated. There's always a real artist on the other end who did something I liked. I thought, oh, this is awesome. And I just wish there was a little more to fill out my monitor. And what the AI does is it examines that and then it tries to recreate that style on the sides. And for a lot of them, it does a good enough job for the art I've been looking at. But, you know, I'm not trying to launch a business based on this either. I'm just trying to fill in the sides of my screen because I think it looks nicer. And I was kind of pleasantly surprised with the results, but it's using all the real art as the foundation to fill in more. Yeah, it's like the equivalent of a skin graft is what it's doing. Like, you know how they take skin from one area and then graft it onto another? That's essentially what I'm doing with AI for the wallpaper. But yeah, if it's just purely generated, it just, I feel like almost all of it just has like this look I don't quite like. So I hope that doesn't become a standard. Let's see. Okay, so I should go to the submitted questions. It sounds like the chat's going to something else I can't keep track of. So, do you have a favorite running gag in Freeman's Mind? A little bit, but I don't want to point it out because I feel like it gets stale the more like you kind of repeat it intentionally. So you just have to guess. And even then, I'm not like looking for excuses to bring it in. It's more like when a situation comes up that it feels like it's a good fit for, then I might bring it up. So I can't think of any jokes off the top of my head that I'm like looking for an excuse to reuse them. Because like there's only a few jokes you can kind of reuse and they stay funny. So, but yeah, I need to get back to Freeman's Mind also. What piece of media do you love that you absolutely cannot recommend to anyone due to its abrasive or off-putting nature? I and I couldn't really think of any, but it would depend on the person. Um, and then they're saying there would be the game Fear and Hunger 2. And I looked it up and it has turn-based combat. So yeah, I'm probably I don't plan on playing that either. Um, yeah, well, I guess like stuff I'd be more hesitant to recommend until I got a feel for what the person's tastes are. Probably be like horror stuff. The movie Cabin Fever. I I could see that being too stupid for some people or too like gross, but like that's one of my top favorite horror comedies. Like the original one, not the remake. Same for Return of the Living Dead. Like that's just I can absolutely understand if that's not to somebody's taste, but man, that's like one of my all-time favorites. Well, it's not even comedy, but again, for horror, one of my favorites, Dawn of the Dead remake. I mean, I like both of them, but the remake, I think, if I had to choose, it slightly edges it out over me. And I want to say almost everything I've seen by Zack Snyder since then hasn't come close. like because Dawn of the Dead is just like jaw dropping good. The remake, it's one of the very very few examples where the remake of a good movie is amazing, because that almost never happens. It's very rarely happens in Hollywood. There's like 100 bad movies to bad or so remakes compared to like ones that like, oh wow, what a great remake, you know. The Dawn of the Dead is one of them. And well, I mentioned it earlier, High on Life, because yeah, if you're more sensitive type or don't like real offensive humor, yeah, no, you shouldn't play that. like there's several comedy things like that where somebody's saying The Thing is another. Well, The Thing is less of a, yeah, of course it's a horror movie, so if the person's not in the horror, they won't like it. But I feel like The Thing it has a whole lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess meaningful expression as a from a psychological perspective, because it's not just about the thing. It's about like seeing how people react, the breakdown of it, and just trying to. I mean, it's a really good movie, I think. But yeah, obviously, if you can't handle horror, you shouldn't watch it. Believe it or not, like this, I was kind of floored by it. For Halloween, back when I was at my parents', my mother actually watched The Thing with my dad. And what she did is when there were gory scenes, she would just leave the room to go get a snack or something, and then just come back later. And I remember walking by a couple times and saying, "Oh yeah, Mom, you might want to leave now." She'd be like, "Okay," and then she would go. And she actually found merit in that, which I never would have suspected. She is not a horror movie watcher by any means. I was really surprised she decided to watch it. But yeah, so she watched the equivalent of like a TV censored version of it, where you just skip all the real gory stuff. So the fact that she found any merit, look, coming from my mother, the fact that she found any merit in it whatsoever, I think speaks volumes about it for a horror movie, because that is, I cannot express how much that is not her cup of tea. That's why I was really surprised she was watching it. Maybe my dad was curious about. Yeah, it's kind of funny because neither of my parents are really into horror movies. So I guess it's like a genetic thing, kind of skipping a generation or something like that. Or I don't think really any of my cousins are either, so I'm just the odd one. Let's see. How does Mike sound without the mask? Okay, well, I guess we went with no what should I say? Yeah, I make a face when I do it because it's like, I don't know, the muscles. I can't do it. Okay, so what's the line I could say for Mike? Cabin. The cabin in the woods. Okay. Although you're hearing this on a different microphone, so it's going to be a little bit different than the one I use for the official recording. So yeah, that's Mike's voice unfiltered. It's probably a little bit higher pitched. I might drop the pitch on him. Oh yeah, this is one I meant to think about, but then I didn't. If I could change the genre of one game, what would it be? I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, because I don't like, because again, there's lots of games I don't really like turn-based combat on, but okay, I know an easy one. I would change the Ascent to like a first-person shooter or RPG, because that game has an amazing world to it that would look awesome in first-person perspective. Yeah, well, somebody's putting in the chats that's Dave's line, the decomposing corpse one. That was not that was not Mike's line. Let's see. I have to get Craig on to do that one. Do you think we are heading back to a form of serfdom? If so, do you foresee a revolution or compliance? If not, what sort of society are we heading towards? Hey, I mentioned it back in the robot jobs video. I see us being more like Soylent Green. That's not exactly a serfdom. That's more, because, I mean, there is a huge stratification between the classes in it, but things are just kind of chaotic too, where the police are just kind of just trying to maintain basic order and not really going much beyond that unless the person's wealthy. And I don't really see us doing much revolution. I think there's too. I think the systems of control are too sophisticated, especially with like kind of, I guess, like sort of divide and conquer tactics, where you get one group of people that could overthrow you, upset with another group of people that could overthrow you about things that don't impact you. Like, I think a lot of culture war stuff can be like that, because if you're arguing about, I don't know, like which, like representation in a movie or something like that, then the more you can fan the flames on that, the less you're arguing about like not having health care or prosecuting Wall Street or electoral fraud or pollution, like water contamination, that sort of thing. So, I mean, it doesn't necessarily like invalidate the complaints, but like I think that's a thing that can be weaponized also. And so that can kind of undermine collective organizing against things that you kind of need for revolution. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect other than it gets more intense and probably more and more people get pushed to the margins. I mean, that's, yeah, and yeah, nowhere good. It's, Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, no, I don't really. I guess if I was, well, we mentioned India earlier. That might be more of a canary in the coal mine for where a lot of other countries are headed. Where, because India has an enormous economic underclass. And it's a lot of people trying to get by, and sometimes conditions can be really awful. And then it can keep tensions very high. So, what's your favorite moment from each GTA game that you've played? Okay, so I wrote them down for this one. I had to think about it. Well, with GTA 3, because I've played a little bit of the first one, but not that much. So that's a game I would love. A camera wouldn't even have to change the game. I guess you'd have to add a skybox. But I mean, the whole game's in 3D. That's one game I would love to have a camera mod conversion for, so you could play it, GTA 3 and onward styles. Same for 2 and London. Um, but let's see. Okay, so for 3 was kind of just like a wow moment across the board because there wasn't much of an equivalent to that when it came out. Uh, I guess there were there's kind of two moments. One, just being wanted from the police and running from them was awesome. I mean, they've all done a pretty good job of that, but 3 was where you really saw it at like the ground level. And I have a good memory of it where I remember I was just getting the whole experience of like the open world like that. And one, and I remember driving along in one of the sports cars through sort of this posh area downtown. And I can't remember if this was in the game or it was like on a custom playlist where I thought it fit. But I was playing "Start the Commotion" at the time. You're like dun 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 dun, and it fit it really well as I'm just driving by, and that moment sort of stuck out to me in GTA 3. With Vice City, I guess you had a bank robbery in that one too. Yeah, okay. If I'm not mixing them up, I remember enjoying the bank robbery, but the radio. Oh yeah, when the original, there's the talk show. Well, all of them that I played, the talk show radio has been great. But yeah, like in 3, I remember Fernando's New Beginnings. That was a lot of fun with Laszlo. In Vice City, some of the lines I remember from the ads were really good. Like for a bail bondsman one, it's just like, here at our bail bondsman, we realize some people make mistakes, and we realize other people also make the same mistakes over and over again. Like that one jumped out at me. Yeah, and I remember they kept advertising this play, like in the future there will be robots, like because it was set in the 80s. I like that. Trying to think of other like really standout moments to me. In San Andreas, I'd have to go with the gang warfare. That was awesome. I love. You can make a whole standalone game on just that concept, and I'd probably eat it up if it was at least that good. Where you're having to go and just claim territory for your turf. It was just so much fun. And GTA 4, that's the most recent one I played, is the bank robbery. That one was, it was intense and just a lot of fun and done really well. I guess the other part that stood out to me in 4 was at one point you have to like kidnap the daughter of some important guy, and she's giving you a lot of trouble. And towards the end, he ends up just punching her out. And then he's just handing him off to some guy. And the guy's like, oh, yeah, I'll take care of this. And he just walks off. And Nico's just almost like not even paying attention to it. For Nico, this is just business as usual. He's just like, he's kind of thinking about something else. And it just, like, it's the sort of thing where it was almost like so degenerate, it's funny, So I remember that. I remember laughing at that part, GTA 4. because you don't know, because they're kidnapping her, and this guy is obviously, he might be a creep. You don't know. The game's not exploring this topic further. It's just like, okay, mission's done. So leaves you wondering. Yeah, I still need to play 5. Maybe I'll get to that this summer. If when I do play 5, it's definitely going to be in the summer, because that strikes me as a summer game, because it's in LA and bright, LA equivalent, bright and sunny. So. Although I think Resident Evil 5 might be higher up on my summer list. That's one I've never played, and that also strikes me as a summer game, because everything I've seen from it is just, everywhere is just sun blasted. So I want it to be like hot and sunny to get more in the mood if I'm playing it. Let's see. Half-Life 3 is almost here. Okay, I haven't been following it. Half-Life games always bring some game-changing stuff. What kind of cool new things do you think we'll see this time? Well, if I were to just take a stab in the dark, I would say a really reactive world. Not like, try to go the full mile, like how people run from you. Yeah, okay. There's some skepticism in the chat there. But basically have a lot of ways. Yeah, I guess kind of what I've heard, again, I haven't played it, but from what I've heard, it's something kind of like Baldur's Gate 3 level of mechanics, where they try to anticipate so many different conditions of things you might do that it probably has kind of a magic to it. That because it's like the game, it probably feels less like a game and more like these are like breathing beings or something, or a living, breathing world. I mean, if I was just guess, that's what they would do. So, I mean, a lot of games have done like a little bit of that, like in Deus Ex, they're telling you, stay out of the women's bathroom, that sort of thing, if you go through there. And a lot of those are scripted, but maybe it'd probably still be scripted, but maybe they could have like a smart algorithm attached to it, or just think of just like 1,000 scenarios or conditions they're coming for. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Ross, please consider making a video message aimed towards PewDiePie, asking him to cover Stop Killing Games. Well, okay, if you want to clip me, I'll say yes. If PewDiePie were to cover the Stop Killing Games movement, or just the initiative, the European Citizens Initiative, that would probably end this, and he would change gaming history, no joke. And he would get gratitude for life, though maybe he already has that, for all I know. But it's not really unique to PewDiePie. This is basically any really large gaming streamer at this point. So what? Markiplier or Jacksepticeye, or what's another one? Oh yeah, who is it? Moist Critical. That might be anybody really that hasn't talked about it yet. It can make all the difference, because again, our biggest problem is exposure. And if we're out here hustling, trying to buy ads, those aren't our sponsor messages. We probably can't afford any of those people anyway. But even then, in English, the uptake ratios, I would expect it to be, for every person watching one of them, probably 1/6 is qualified to sign. So just by them making a message on it, it would make all the difference. I don't think it's a great idea to just make a standalone video saying, PewDiePie, yeah, help me, PewDiePie, you're my only hope. Because it's kind of, the thing is, this isn't really in his lap. I feel like if you were to do that, it has to be something, I mean, he has the power, but maybe that's not that big a concern for him. I don't know. Or he doesn't want to set the precedent that if I'm asking for this and he does it, then other people will keep asking him to do something and something like that. So it's kind of, look, if I had a high level of confidence doing that would solve it, I would, but I don't. And it's almost the opposite, where I feel like if I were to make that like plea for them, like, oh, please do this. Well, then everybody sees this is going to think, okay, this guy is like a little unhinged, like, and is coming across just like, kind of obsessive about this. So like, I don't know, really want to touch this or something like that. And, that's just a social norm thing in general. I'd say the only time that kind of makes sense is if it's 100% in their wheelhouse. Like, well, I mean, people can reach me through email, but let's say you couldn't. And equivalent of the Dream software came out, and I didn't know about it, and they want to make a video. Ross, your Dream software has come out. Yes, I would want to see that, because I made a whole video talking about, yes, I am really interested in this one thing, because I would have already kind of set the stage for, being contacted like that. But if it's not specifically towards them, that's something that they personally really need to address, then it's kind of like trying to put it's paradoxical, but it's kind of putting the burden where I mean, you can argue it belongs on them, but, they may look at it like, if they help me with this, then they got to help everybody, and they don't want to open that door. So, yeah, I mean, he might look. I am happy for. I would 100% PewDiePie welcome PewDiePie talking about this, but if I'm making it like a call out video to him, I feel like that would rub a lot of people the wrong way, So, to feeling dissuaded from talking about it due to the drama around it. Oh, yeah, which. Oh, okay, he's replying to somebody else. Okay, so I don't know. Yeah, like the unfortunately the pirate software coverage, I know there was like at least one case where like a very large streamer who routinely gets millions of views didn't want to talk about it because of the drama surrounding it. So it's like we just couldn't win, I mean, I offered to discuss this in a very cordial and polite setting, got shot down completely. The comment deleted, my request deleted, so. And then goes on to misrepresent the movement. So it is what it is. But yeah, so I can say now, any large gaming YouTuber, streamer, you really could save this and change gaming history. And for the people who thinks, oh, this isn't going to change anything, I think people probably heard me talk about this before, but the very short version is, I think it will, because the law on this is already such a mess. It needs to, in the EU, it needs to be resolved one way or the other. So if this is rolling up with all these signatures and there's a consumer mandate for it, that makes it easy for the politicians to go that direction rather than trying to figure out which way the law applies on this. Like let's say you were an impartial judge. So in other words, you have no stake in this matter, and you were looking at the problem and looking at what the law says. This would be a nightmare, because it's like the law just doesn't cover this situation, and if anything, it's contradictory depending on which directive is applying to it. That's not a situation you want as a judge. And then when there's not a clear guiding principle for how to act on this, because this would help tilt it in the right direction. I really, again, I would bet money that if we pass the threshold, we resolve this in a way that's favorable to gamers. So that's why I think if we pass that threshold, I think we win this, and I would bet a large amount for me, I guess, on it, if that was the. But getting to that threshold, that's the hell. It's easy for it's comparatively easy for a streamer, but they have to want to do it. You know, you can't force people to talk about this. So. And I can't afford, or even I think even our sponsors can't afford to pay people on that size. Or if we do, it's going to have to be like a French one or German or Polish one, because that would be far more targeted than like an English, than someone streaming in English. Have you ever played Metal Gear Solid 2? If so, what is your opinion on its interpretation of AI and censorship? I've seen the twist for it, but no, I haven't played it. That's one I should probably watch a playthrough of. I've watched the playthrough of the original of Metal Gear Solid, but I know 2 is kind of mind blowing for some people because they're playing like head games with it. But I'd have to look at it again. I'll have to. I say again, I haven't watched a full playthrough. I'll have to watch a playthrough of it sometime. I have like a list of ones I'm trying to get through slowly, but I've just been so busy. So I was saying, did you get my postcard? Not yet. I finally can have mail sent to me at a post office address that won't give out my address if people really want to send me something. But I have limited storage space here, so I'd rather not just everybody send me a surprise or something like that. So, I mean, I've had to jettison stuff pretty much every time I've moved. Russ, how do you keep your weight stable? What are the main products that you eat? Well, it's not as stable as it should be. I mean, I still need to work on it some more, but yeah, I know how to. I guess that's the difference. Um, well, okay, the main products I eat, that can also vary. My diet is more stringent than it probably needs to be for most people, because over the past few years, if I eat certain foods, it makes my skin just flake and it's awful. And it's probably related to my gut bacteria biome, as I understand it. So foods I do eat a lot have to be ones that are like relatively safe for that. So beans are safe enough, onions, zucchini, sweet potato. Geez, what else? Like, I shouldn't touch anything with like a high glycemic index. Like carrots and peas I can kind of react to now, which sucks because I like them. I guess squash is fine. Leafy vegetables, it varies. It's like if I react, it's like a little bit, not too much. But anyway, it doesn't have to be that stringent. If you want to like really lose weight and keep it under control, I'd say there's basically 2 things that you really want to keep on talk. One is sugar, and I'm counting, sucrose, glucose syrup, corn syrup, or just anything in that category. And the other is just kind of carbohydrates in general, like grains like wheat, bread, cereals, rice, oatmeal. I've found actually if you have, maybe milk is okay though. I mean not milk. Butter is okay. You might want to avoid a lot of dairy. I'm not sure on that one. I kind of have to now, but those are the big ones. Like if you're eating like meat and vegetables, you're probably going to lose a lot of weight or get to where you want to be. But yeah, and the other thing about sugar is if you're not sure if you're eating foods with added sugar in them, you almost certainly are. So, like if you know you're not because you're checking like all the ingredients, then fine. But like, oh yeah, starch. Yeah, you might want to avoid starches. I guess potatoes to some extent. I mentioned sweet potatoes, but those actually have a lower glycemic level. I mean, I'm not a diabetic, but I tend to do better on foods that are better for diabetics, Let's see, but yeah, have you tried experimenting with probiotics like yogurt? I react to the yogurt. Uh, Coleslaw I hate because it has vinegar. Polish cabbage salad. I haven't. Oh, you mean like sauerkraut? Yeah, yeah. I've had sauerkraut. It seems to be okay, and that probably, yeah, that's one of those things where it's probably a superfood in terms of its health. That's probably like the best thing I can eat actually for gut bacteria. Sauerkraut's one of those things where, yeah, yeah. There's a kind with vinegar and without vinegar. I'm talking about the one without vinegar. The what? The the thing about that is like I almost have to condition. I have to like mentally prepare myself to eat it because it tastes okay to me, but it smells like it's rotten. So I'm like having to like fight my impulses on this to like it's okay. You know, it's like I just have to like maintain that like okay, this is okay. I can eat this, but it's like I just have to keep fighting my impulses. So it's I should probably eat more of that. Yeah, so I'm saying troubleshooting your own body is comparable to troubleshooting your own PC. Yeah, but that's why I feel very safe uh, saying that if you're trying to lose weight, just cut as many sugars as you can. I mean, some fruit's okay, you know, just raw fruit, but I wouldn't have fruit juice and you know processed fruit juice. Well, you know, squeezed or whatever. Um, and for carbohydrates, maybe if you had like really complex ones, that might be all right. But you know, like rye or something. But it would depend. So I was saying, what about breaded fish? Well, I mean that's probably okay. I mean the yeah, depending which oil. Yeah, for like I don't feel qualified to talk so much about oils. I can have olive oil and coconut oil, and that my skin doesn't react to that. My skin absolutely hates sunflower oil. Like if I have something with sunflower oil at this point, like it's coming off in chunks within like 10 minutes or something. It reacts that fast to it. And like canola oil's sort of on the edge, but I probably shouldn't be having that. But for other people, maybe it's fine. But olive oil, I don't react, so that's helpful. So he's saying, how about rum with Coke? Well, well, yeah, I guess if you don't eat and just want to have rum and Coke, then you would lose weight. Might not do wonders for your health, but you would lose weight from, I guess, if you just don't eat. Yeah, there was a Whitest Kids You Know skit where they do the all alcohol diet. Like, that's what it reminded me of. Okay, so here's a question I keep saying, but I'll keep answering this. If the European Citizens Initiative fails, is that it for you, or is there another plan? I was watching many videos, interviews of Stop Killing Games, and there are a bit of mixed messages. So no, let me make it black and white clear. There is nothing past that we can do. That's it. July 31st, there is nothing I know of that we can do to influence this. Now, what could happen afterwards are things we already have in motion that we have no control over. So, like actions with the BEUC or the consumer agencies in France, Germany, Australia, that's already out of our hands. Like we could say, oh no, this is a big mistake. We didn't mean to raise a complaint. Tough, too bad. It's already going through. You know, so they're going to rate your decision on that one way or the other. So the Europeans, I mean, I guess technically, well, no, that ends in July too. But there is the UK petition, but I'm a lot less optimistic on that. I mean, even if we pass the threshold, I think it would have a chance, but it would be a much rougher chance. But that ends in July also. No, so there is, yeah, let me make that as clear as I can. There is nothing I know of to end this practice that we collectively can do past July 31st. Like, that's it. Like, we might still win, but it'll be because of stuff we did essentially starting last year. That it'll just keep going on, and it's not something we need to maintain. So past July 31st is it. I know of no other way to influence this practice. I really meant it when I said, like, I went at this like it's our only shot, because I really think it is. So no, you don't have to apologize for repeating that. Like, I want people to understand that this is it. Like, if we fail, then it fails, and we just have to hope the Consumer Protection Agency stuff comes through. But there's nothing we can do past that. So yeah, no, I hope I can get that through, and probably somebody is going to be saying something. Well, we'll just do something afterwards if it fails. I don't know what the hell you're going to do. I mean, I have no plans to do more because I just don't, I see no opportunities past that. So, let's see. You said before that you start playing games with the intent of making a game dungeon out of it. Well, not necessarily, only sometimes. Like, if it just gives me a vibe, you know, that like, they're saying how often when doing this do you realize that you can't or shouldn't make a video out of it? I don't know if I've had to do one where I had to back out of it. If I did, it probably happened early on, but no, some of them I've already played, so I know they're going to be a decent candidate in revisiting. Others, they just have to give me the right vibe. Like Sabotage gave me that. Yeah, Realms of the Haunting, that was another one I went in blind. Because, I mean, with like Realms of the Haunting, that was a full motion video game and like something that looked kind of like the Doom engine. It's an RPG and a first person shooter and an adventure game. What came out? How many discs did it come on? Like 3 or something? Like, this is a big scale game, and it just kind of gotten forgotten by the wayside. And it's starting off pretty spooky. Well, no, the very intro clip is starting off like something out of like a fantasy movie, and then it gets really spooky, and then that guy I knew was scared of it, had nightmares over it. Something, okay, there's got to be something here. Like I didn't know what, but I figured there has to be something here. Same for Messiah. I really liked how Messiah started off. You're like, I'm a cop, you know? Like, and then just like the kid's voice for the cherub, and you're in a cyberpunk world that, like, yeah, this checked off a lot of boxes of stuff I like. So I'm thinking, like, I'm in. I got to see where this goes. You know. Let's see. Okay, well, I'm just glancing at the questions. Talking about Warhammer 40K a lot. Well, I don't talk about it like that much compared to some people, but I'm losing it. Have you read any of the Warhammer fantasy books? I've read a little bit of I don't think I've read any of the like old Warhammer, old world stuff, but I read some of a friend was doing like a role playing game. I think it was like Warhammer 40K Inquisitor. So I read the source book on that, and that had a lot of fascinating stuff in it. I might have read one other, but I forget. Do you see AAA games implementing general AI to make a transformative game? Do you think games like No Man's Sky would have been a lot better using generative AI? I don't know. It's this sort of thing where it might like I don't want to write it off, but I feel like there's a high bar you need to clear in order to like win people over on it. Is how I feel about like generative AI stuff, but it might, especially, I feel like it could have the most payoff for stuff like kind of like a Minecraft world, or yeah, you mentioned No Man's Sky, where like, because like I feel like if I were to play Minecraft now, I have in my mind a general range of what to expect as I'm going to be exploring. Whereas if you had general AI, it could pull models Like if it was using generative AI for like the landscape and the architecture, and you fed it a whole lot of sources, you could come up with all kinds of like exotic things that the deeper you went into it, but you'd really have to refine that. So yeah, I think again, I don't want to write it off, but I think you really need to prove it. You know, I wouldn't just slap it in there at all. You're not getting something cohesive with just generations. You'll need to duct tape and staple them together yourself. Well, I mean, it depends on like what you're generating, but yeah, because I see the real appeal of generative AI for like in game stuff where, I mean, this stuff might get better and better, but so far it's not winning me over for a lot of like for stuff that you see in games. I mean that it would replace. But like I mentioned, is stuff where it would be algorithmic, kind of like Minecraft, or I showed Hellgate London, but then you could kind of get something a little more novel on top of that. So you still have like your kind of core gameplay experience, but it's sprinkling in stuff that's too out there for the algorithm to have, and it could make some sense, but yeah, it's true. I was thinking even then something like that might work better for like a blocky game like Minecraft, because then if it's more abstract, that might still work. Whereas if, like I mentioned, Hellgate London, those buildings might start looking off, or it's generating weird stuff that looks similar to the buildings, but it doesn't really resemble anything. So yeah, it's I'd say focus on fixing the uncanny valley stuff first. Look for the textures if you want. Well, depending on what you're using it for. Yeah, so I'm saying I think a lot of people start treating generated content as cheap and not worth attention. That's kind of how I look at it. It's kind of guilty until proven innocent at this point. Yeah, I mean, again, almost all my interest in AI is as a tool. Like, hey, I'm still waiting. You can always email me about this, even if you hear about it 3 years from now. I want AI that can remove laugh tracks or just laughter in general from like an audio track. So for sitcoms that use laugh tracks, I want to be able to run an AI on there, and it's going to remove almost pretty much all the laugh tracks. If it goes overkill and removes organic laughter, that's okay. I'll accept that. So um, yeah, I'd love AI for. Well, I might try. It'll probably just be an algorithm, but I'd love AI for like looking at my volume levels, for getting like what I call like the micro clicks in recording, that sort of thing. Um, yeah, well, and of course like the Dream software. So yeah, I'm what I'm very keen on AI as a tool, but if it's just it's I look at it as like a tool assisting the artist. Where if it's trying to replace the artist, I'm not very, I haven't been impressed. You know. Okay. Had a chance to play the Oblivion remaster. No, I don't even have a copy. I mean, what it released for what $50? I'm not touching that. I mean, the thing is, okay, some people are gonna think I'm being ridiculous and nitpicky, and maybe I am, but I'm not sure I am gonna play it because here's the thing: with original Oblivion, I think I mentioned this last time. It really could stand to have some help with the two things I think it needs the most help on are. I remember running it a few years ago where my system should have been way over spec for it, and I even got like I even tried to get like a mod to make it even more smooth, but I feel like there would be like stuttering in between zones that it's like I could never get the frame rate completely smooth. So that sounds like an engine thing. And the other thing was the level of detail on the landscape the difference between them and what was immediately around you, it was pretty jarring. Like it was that needed some work. But for like the close-up details, like and just the landscape in general and the art direction, I thought there were some spots, yeah, I could use some touching up, but I thought it was pretty good. And the new Oblivion, it like the remaster, it just feels all different, like the landscape and the atmosphere. Like because you had all this, yeah, I talked about this last time. I was thinking, I think Oblivion's part, I don't know if it's enough to be a trend yet, but I've been noticing it. Oblivion remastered okay, I'm just basing this off of screenshots and gameplay footage I've seen. Oblivion remastered, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Avowed, and Baldur's Gate 3. For a lot of their areas that have greenery, they all kind of have this look. It took me a while to figure out how to explain it. They all have this look to me like this is like just on the border of having a drought. Like, so it's like we're maybe not into like full-fledged drought yet, but it has that look to it. And that feeling from the atmosphere just makes me, in real life, just make me feel just kind of like blah. And, oh yeah, that was, well, I saw one of the other questions. They were okay, well, I'll answer another question while I'm on this. They were asking if I've played Dragon's Dogma. And I haven't, and it's another game that gives me that feeling with the landscape, where it feels like we're just on the border of having a drought. And that just gives me a blah feeling. It feels more ugly to me. Whereas, what I was thinking, it popped in my head. I was thinking just how much I like I mean, it's a 2D game, but I like the aesthetics of Kyrandia 1 and 2, especially. Because I was thinking, this is what I want to see from a fantasy game, where it's like it's full of life and exotic areas. Actually, I kind of made the connection from original Oblivion. Was it the Gold Coast area? I think where all the vegetation is kind of more yellow and brown. That kind of reminded me of the area in Kyrandia 2 in the farmlands. Like it felt a little bit like that. I was thinking, yeah, I'd like that more of that. Yeah, Witcher 3 does not feel like it's in a drought. It's not necessarily my favorite landscape, but it doesn't give that feeling. And the new one, and you might say, like, who cares? Like, the gameplay's better and all that. Yeah, it might be, but that was a big part of the appeal of Oblivion to me, is that exploring that world feels great. I 100% want to revisit Oblivion in some form in VR and, like, just walk. Yeah, I was thinking what I really want to do is walk through probably with, like, a mod so I don't have to deal with a lot of combat with no map and just wander until I feel like I've explored everything. Just disable the map and just walk. And the art direction wasn't perfect, but the original was really good, and the remaster, it needs work. And the thing is, maybe I'm being too picky, but I think even Skyblivion also needs some work. However, Skyblivion, whenever that releases, it's going to be on the Skyrim. Yeah, it's going to be a total conversion for Skyrim. So that means it's going to be way more moddable. So maybe there's somebody out there who's like staring at this thinking, no, they should have done this. This needs to look like Oblivion. Here, let's change our textures and the lighting and everything. And they'll probably take care of it. So. Oh, and well, okay, it's related to one of the later questions, but I'll bring it up now. I realized, for everybody who thinks I'm being too fussy and picky about this, I realized I think I thought of a game that has, basically what I would consider perfect, like, art direction for, like, lighting. So you're going for a realistic environment, and the color for the lighting used is, like, perfect. They don't tint the hell out of things. And that would be Forza Horizon 4. That has all 4 seasons in it, a temperate zone. like I can't think of, I've played that and I can't think of any time of day where I'm thinking, oh, the lighting, they screwed up. No, everything just looks perfect for the art direction. Like they got all the colors just perfect. So I think like any game I'm complaining about like the tinting or the crappy lighting, colored lighting, if you were to put, you could take that setting, like, okay, we're talking spring, 3 in the afternoon. Okay, fine, let's bring that up in Forza, yeah, they have different weather conditions. Let's bring that up in Forza Horizon 4 and compare it, and it would make the original look like crap. And I think everybody would understand what I'm talking about then. It's just, and the thing is, it has a full day-night cycle. It has cloud, it has overcast. I think it even has fog, if I remember right. It has cloudy days. It has bright and sunny days. It has like summer sunny. It has like, you know, fall, winter, spring. It pretty much has the entire full spectrum for like a temperate zone area. You'd have to go to like Egypt or something or someplace in the equator where it's just like the sun's so intense, you're getting different shades before it shows up. So your fantasy world should not be getting beaten in art direction by Sonic and the Black Knight. I haven't played that, but yeah. Because I'm not really talking about like texture fidelity or the best looking shaders. I'm talking about stuff we could have done 25 years ago with lighting. It's just like picking the right colors, for your light sources. That's essentially the core of it. And for vegetation, not using that bright texture for kind of borderline drought soil. I think one of the reasons I'm more sensitive to this is I go to the forest every day to exercise. So I think sometimes what I see, I mean, sometimes the vegetation makes sense for the setting, I just don't like it. Other times, it triggers almost an uncanny valley in my mind that I'm thinking, you shouldn't have plants that look, it's not natural to have plants that look like this and have this and not have more water or rainfall in this area. Like it's triggering something where kind of like, you're not going to have like jungle plants like way up north because they need a certain climate to grow. It's kind of like that, but on like a subtle level I'm not fully consciously aware of, but my brain's seeing something wrong with it. So, and you need a real expert that can actually point to what it is. Okay, but yeah, just I have zero complaints about Forza Horizon 4 for their choice of lighting direction. That's like the platinum standard. I can't think of a single thing wrong with it. So. Yeah, and that was okay. Well, real quick, that was also a pet peeve of mine that people would call the newer Oblivion more realistic. It's like, well, that depends on what the hell you're talking about. Because I think old Oblivion, I think the color overall is more realistic for that kind of environments, So there are parts that overdo it though, like with the bloom and the teal and the sky in the original. But okay, so I was saying, what motivated you to do creative projects like YouTube video? This is a question I don't even know how to answer. It's like, I mean, I guess just I guess it's less so for stuff like Freeman's Mind and Game Dungeon, but for more creative things like with the movie and the like animated shorts, it's just kind of wanting to see ideas that you like made manifest. I don't even know how to explain it beyond that. So. Are you ever going to generate new lines for Freeman's Mind characters, or are you going to stick to the original scripts as they run? Well, I wasn't. I mean, no, I don't plan that for Freeman's Mind, though I have had script ideas for Civil Protection where I was going to try and see if I could find a sound-alike for the scripts. But again, this is why that's one of those kind of regrets I have that I never got around to that, because it's just something that had to be put on the back burner in order to earn a living, because silver protection takes too long to really survive off of it. But yeah, like I wanted to have like Kleiner or Barney, or I think I had one idea with Breen or the G-Man. And the thing is, like, oh geez, well, he'll probably forgive me for getting his name, but the voice actor for Barney and Black Mesa, which I think Kevin I think I have his email still, and I've talked with him a little bit. Man, he just kills it as Barney. So he would hit a home run out that. But yeah, I wouldn't mind having some episodes of Barney of it. But if it's just for Freeman's Mind, I don't know, because yeah, then you'd have to go and lip sync the lines to it. That's a hassle. I would want a full Civil Protection episode if I'm going to do that. So. How much do you care for behind-the-scenes media? Do you watch making of featurettes or turn on commentary tracks for movies, games, etc.? Most of the time, I'm not that interested in it, unless it's something that like really fascinates me, or I just want more, or I like the thing I saw so much, I just want more, So I don't follow it so much right now, but there's some tidbits I've run into, that sort of thing. So I was asking if there's any examples of movie, show, or game where I was seriously impressed by the amount of research and effort that must have been done in order to represent a time period accurately. Because they mentioned Assassin's Creed there. Well, Assassin's Creed, I'm kind of just taking their words for it, because I have seen some featurettes where they're talking about like how many researchers they had involved with making the world and that sort of thing. And they made the 2 educational versions, too, for Origins and and that story went viral for Origins, that they kind of took a guess that there was a secret chamber for a pyramid, and then later that was discovered after the fact on it. So yeah. The thing is, I'm not enough of a historian to know unless there's something that like I'm really skeptical of, or that would, I had no idea that would cause me to look it up. Like one that kind of caught me, I'm assuming this is true, but one that kind of caught me off guard was in Assassin's Creed Rogue. They essentially have an automatic weapon on the ship. I think it was called like a tackle gun or something. I forget what it was, and that takes place in the 1700s. And I had no idea that something resembling an automatic weapon went back that far. So, that's an example of that. But I'm sure that you really should talk to historians about what are the most impressive examples of historical accuracy in popular media, that sort of thing. I don't have enough context to know, unless there's something I'm fairly familiar with, and then I can see they just got it wrong, or compels me to research it to just double check if my conceptions about it are correct. Yeah, if anybody knows what kind of gun I'm talking about, yeah, it was mounted to a full ship. I don't know if it was called a tackle gun. That might have been just my brain filling it in. But. Have you tried reaching out to Famey, F4MI, a gaming tech YouTuber in the EU? She talks about old games tech sometimes. It might be interested in the Stop Killing Games movement. I'd be happy for her to talk to it, though. My mind's, unless she had, millions of views, my mind's in a place where I'm just kind of focus firing on the non-English ones. Because it's not about where the person is, it's about what language they're speaking. Because that kind of determines who's watching them. So, there's not a whole lot of people outside of Poland speaking Polish. I mean, obviously there's a few, but so that means that if there's a big Polish video on this, almost everyone watching that's going to be eligible to sign. Whereas if it's in English, even if they're in the EU, most people watching that probably aren't in the EU unless it's like highly relevant to an EU crowd that it wouldn't be to like Americans or Canadians or Australians, that sort of thing. But hey, if she wants to cover it, absolutely. I'm still available to come on. Look, any channel that has, we have a decent chance of reaching several thousand people, if you want me to come on, I'll come on. That's not a problem, just about. And so if she wants to have me on, sure, or she's willing to talk about it for 30 seconds, one of her videos, we'd be more than happy. It's just that we do have limited resources from the sponsors, so we have to really focus fire this stuff. And English doesn't qualify, I'm afraid. We have to be as smart as possible with this money. Oh, yeah. Did you know that the crew is playable in single player now? Modders cracked the Ubisoft code. Okay, maybe there's something I'm completely oblivious to, but I think this person has bad information. But there's a lot. It's similar to the truth, though. My understanding is there was that offline mode built into the crew. My understanding is no one ever cracked that. However, what's happening is that developer group, the Crew Unlimited, they've made a partially functioning, I guess getting more and more functioning server emulator that's kind of like in-house that they're working on. And they've released videos showcasing it. That's not the same as cracking it. That's a server emulator they're making. So what they're doing is they're intercepting the calls that the client is making to get the game running again. And they've been making more and more progress on that. And they've demonstrated some proof of, they've demonstrated some videos as proof showing it's working. And it sounds like it's going to be awesome. So it's not the same as a single player mode, but it's basically a server you can connect to by yourself and run locally. So it's functionally the same as a single player mode and a multiplayer mode. I guess the only advantage of a single player crack over that would be you would probably use less resources because you're going to have to use extra resources to run the server. But I might be behind, but last time I checked, that server emulator is not public yet. I think it's still just the developers who have access to it. And I'm happy for them to take as long as they need to have a good release. So I'm stoked they're doing it. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's going to be a better experience with the end of post-life build because it's going to be more moddable. So it means these quality of life features I really wanted when I was playing the original might be possible now. So I'm looking forward to it. Okay, somebody's asking if I think we'll get the movie before 2027. Before 2027, I wouldn't bet on it because my plan is get a few videos out to just try to keep my channel afloat as simultaneously while doing the Stop Killing Game stuff, which slows it down a lot. I hate that. But so and then take a few months, at least that's the plan, to focus on nothing, on just the movie until I can kind of feel like I have legs to stand on so our foundation is relatively solid. So the movie won't be done at that point, but it'll be hopefully at a point where I know how to handle, from a technical perspective, every scene. And then from that point onward, it's just doing it and putting the time in. 'Cause, I cannot express how much easier it is psychologically to work on something where it's just a matter of putting time in versus having 10 elements that you don't know how you're going to do this. And it could be relatively easy to figure out, or it could just stop the entire production. I don't think that's going to happen because I'm not going to be on the source engine. So it's just, but I still need to figure out a few fundamental parts for it. Then after that, my plan is to kind of get more videos out to try and catch up for the even further loss in views and revenue that I'll have accrued by working on the movie, and then try to balance it off and on between there. So having that all done in 2026, I don't know, but I, okay, I'm gonna speak very deliberately. I'll say that I think it is reasonable to expect the movie in 2027. That doesn't mean it'll be there, but I think that's a reasonable expectation if all goes to plan. So, or if I get some luck here. Because again, Stop Killing Games ends end of July. I mean, my end of it, whether we're successful with the initiative or not. So, at least that's one thing I can finally write off. But yeah, look, it's an absolute thorn in my side. I haven't gotten more done on it, and I'm half ashamed of it, and I'm half just incredibly frustrated because I know it was for a whole lot of it was for very valid reasons that more didn't get done on because I had so much other crap I had to do. If I put like this, if I was independently wealthy, the movie would have been done years ago. Or if I didn't have to depend on YouTube income, or donations, that sort of thing. But that's not my life. So I'll get there. I'll get there. I'm just saying, thoughts on uploading old game dungeons taken down by YouTube. Well, so far that's only Phantasmagoria 2, but I guess if that happens tomorrow, I'll upload them then too. Yeah, actually, I noticed that maybe that's one I should upload. That last video, and even though there was just kind of filler material of just driving the rally game while I was talking about the games list, the deck games list, look, the visual quality on YouTube, okay, so I don't have a premium account, so maybe it's better with enhanced bitrate. Like, it butchered the quality. Here, okay, it's been 2 days now. Let me see if it still looks, because it looks so much nicer in like the original video I uploaded. Okay, let me pull this up. Let's see if it still looks rough. Oh, wait, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay, I thought for a second it recorded me. It's still rough. It's a little better. It's still rough because that's high frequency noise material, which, man, YouTube is not like that. So, yeah, well, I think the same thing kind of happened with The Crew, actually, the episode when I uploaded that. Yeah, man, Forest going by quickly without motion blur. Oh boy, compression techniques hate that. So, yeah, so there's a good comment there. So they're saying they ran a server emulator to play Lego Universe with their friends after it was shut down over a decade ago. It turned out Lego Universe was not that good a game. Well, now you know. And the thing is, what if you never were able to run it again? Then you might have this yearning to play it, and then you never know it wasn't that good a game. So, there's something to be said for that. Okay. Okay, somebody's saying they listen to all the video chats. It feels like they're best friends in a very one-sided way. It's kind of weird. Well, that's fine. I mean, hey, maybe we would get along. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's society is kind of scrambled in weird ways, so I'm doing this all technically just talking to a computer and basically imagining the people listening on the other end, or I see text messages, Anyway, how do you expect people to consume these? Does this make me a madman? I don't know either, but I would assume they would listen to this while they're probably doing something else. Yeah, like maybe they're playing a kind of low engagement game or just working at something kind of mindless that they need to do, right? Washing dishes or something. I don't pretend this is high quality content that you're listening to here. I've always said this is just kind of a what uh yeah, proof of life thing to show that no, I am doing things. It's you don't have to abandon everything, but often behind, you know. Oh wow, looks like I'm really behind in the follow-ups then. I didn't realize 3 had been that long. Yeah, no, 4 is going to be good. The main question is how much do I have to cut from 4, and if am I going to have a 5 back to back? That's the main question for me at the moment. There's going to be interesting stuff in there, for sure. Well, you got a little bit of a spoiler with the Nvidia stuff, but there's more on that. So. Opinions on the Switch 2. Are you going to talk about it on a video? No, not really. I haven't been following it that much. I think the price got jacked up because of the tariffs and like is Mario World, I mean not Mario Kart World the first $80 game or like well no, it's not the first $80, the first mainstream $80 game, I guess. As like a base price. I'm not. I have no idea. Yeah, I think it's probably the first one where it's it's meant to be like a new standard. You know, because sometimes you have like weird games with like custom DLC that get real high priced or how much what was it? Oh geez, what was that? Something Steel, that game with the custom that game that came with the custom controller. I could see that being above average price because they're trying to pack more in there. But I haven't been following it that much. But that's the most significant thing I've noticed. That's actually something I'm curious about. What's the time duration between a major AAA company releasing a base game for $70 to going to $80? Yeah, Steel Battalion, thank you. I feel like it's not been that long, like maybe like a year and a half or something. And that after the base price being frozen at $60 for decades or something. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I have not read MS Paint Adventures. And I've heard of Homestuck, but I don't really know much of anything about it. In fact, my favorite reference to Homestuck, let's see. Here, maybe I can put the link in the chat. It was like this kind of parody video, like Train Simulator Pro 360 no scope. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. Yeah, this is a modern classic here. Put this in the and Homestuck is mentioned in the text message. There is that. Let me make sure my clipboard is. Yeah, Train Simulator 12. Pro No Steam Rail Shots HD King's X Cross MLG. Yeah. It's only like 30 seconds or something, but it's great. Yeah. Yeah, like Farming Simulator Mad Plow Skills. Yeah, exactly. They tried to make the most hardcore train simulator video that they could. So, and I think they largely accomplished it. So. Okay, yeah, I'll put that in the description for sure. Yeah, oh, and it goes on YouTube. Do you know or have played any of these games? Hard to Be a God, Enclave, Dungeon Lords, and Archangel. I've played all of those except Archangel. I haven't played that one. I have heard of it. Maybe I'll get to it eventually. Yeah, Hard to Be a God's another one like, Requital. I mispronounced that. Where they just the colors are either drab and dull, or else it's just color bloom to all hell, and there's nothing in between. So it's yeah, it's kind of a mix there, but it's interesting. Enclave is probably the strongest of those three that I played. That one's fairly decent game. Um, not too much of a story, but like good atmosphere. Gameplay is all right, and actually a bit of a spoiler for the movie. One of the tracks from Enclave, I want to use essentially as a placeholder for a major scene in the movie. So if you want to get an idea, you can try and guess which track is that, because I was thinking this just has like the exact kind of mood I want for this scene. So I would probably use that as a model for the composer to come up with something similar. Yeah, in Dungeon Lords, I used music for the credits in the Chosen Game Dungeon episodes. I didn't finish Dungeon Lords. I got a ways into it, then it just started feeling kind of too grindy for me. It was all right. It was like awkward, but all right. Yeah. Have you seen the BBC movie Threads? Yes, I have. I've also seen The Day After. Those are not movies I particularly want to watch again, but they're very well done. You know, it shows you what to expect from nuclear war if you live the first few days or week, you know. And my understanding is it's pretty realistic, you know. Do you think this sort of scenario is something that could happen in our lifetime with all the conflicts around the world now? I think this is literally the worst thing that could happen, and no matter what the conflict is, we just can't let it get to this point. I agree with you. I think that's basically the worst thing that could happen ever to humanity without getting to something really exotic. Yeah, 100%. Is this sort of thing that could happen in our lifetime? I think it's like a wild card. You know, it might never happen, or yes, it could happen. So yeah, the more diligence and awareness of how horrific it is, the better, really, is the way I look at it. Now, as for conflict, well, there's kind of two levels of it. There's one, could a country use a nuclear weapon against another? Yeah, that's certainly a possibility. And that would be as horrific as the movie for anyone caught like within the zone of the impact, or maybe the surrounding area, that sort of thing. And that would be exactly as horrific as it's portrayed in there. Now, but that's something I don't want under any scenario, basically. But if it did happen, that's nowhere near as bad as mutually assured destruction, which is basically a major superpower just unleashing all their nukes, or hundreds of them, or thousands at another country. Basically, the idea being that the nukes are a deterrent because that's so insane. The nukes themselves are a deterrent against another country attacking them at a significant level, because then everyone loses. You know, and I could be mistaken, but I think the main risk, of that happening would be from either the United States, Russia, or China. I think they're the only ones with like an arsenal big enough to essentially end the world. I mean, now there's a debate as to how literal that is for humanity. Whether we're talking about if we did a mutually assured destruction, would that basically kill every single last person who's not deep underground in a bunker? Or would it just kill like 90% of the population, and just the remaining people is just hell on earth, but humanity technically survives? The way I see it, who cares? You're not living through it either way, unless you're in a really exotic location and have, have your own private bunker somehow, and it can last for decades, which I imagine is almost no one. So, and, and even if you survive the initial blast, man, the fallout, it would be, there's the phrase that it would be worse than the, um, it would be worse than if you were in like the initial blast radius, because the the radioactive decay of yourself would just is like the most horrific thing that can happen. Um, Now, that can happen with the lifetimes of all the conflicts around the world now. I should probably get off this topic, but I think I'll just say there, the risk of mutually assured destruction, I think, is slightly lower than it was earlier. I'll say that. I'll just keep it broad like that, because this can get into other topics where, again, I think Russia, China, and the United States are the main ones where you have to worry about that. But if there was, I guess if there was a war, a conflict of smaller countries with a nuclear blast, and then the Allies, I have some hope that if that happened, that like if they were allies of a more major power, then that those allies might be hesitant, I would hope, to be let the nukes fly off the hook if only like a couple have been exchanged in that localized area, because that's the difference between basically kind of ruining life in that entire region versus ending the world. And a lot of people don't want to end the world. So I think when it's scariest is when you have someone, or if you had someone who doesn't like acknowledge the risk of it in their mind. They think that like, no, I'll be okay. I'll be in a bunker. We'll lose 90% of the population, but they'll repop. There have been some officials that I've heard words coming out of their mouths that just like, they scared the hell out of me, because it was almost like emperor's new clothes kind of thing. But like this, I haven't heard it from any heads of state, but I have heard that from some officials in various administrations, that I was just like, I hope this person does not have any authorization over it. And like, I don't even like to play with that topic. So unless it's real obviously a joke. So I should get off. I should get on to a different question. I think this always goes in like a dark place when we get onto it. Someone's asking, can anyone guess what fans of Dick Tracy are called? I'm guessing it's going to be a dirty joke, but my first thought of Dick Tracy is the Dick Tracy punch, where he swings and he knocks over like 5 guys at once. Let's see. You mentioned once that you thought you weren't into RPGs until you discovered examples of real-time combat. Has this happened to you with any other game genres? Going from not being into one at all into actually coming to enjoy it? Or the opposite, going from liking one, not being able into it anymore for some reason? Well, you may have a little bit of that, the latter in the follow-up, but I guess the most obvious one I can think of is, I never hated it, but I never really got that into it until later would be first-person shooters. Because the two things that I didn't like about it were, one, just the maze-like aspect of so many of them, and two, keyboard aiming. Because keyboard aiming sucks. And once once they started using mouse aiming, it's like, oh wow, this is a lot more fun, So yeah, it's like I never hated them, but it was just, I wasn't like super on board with it. And I guess with platformers, like 2D platformers, I think I've gotten more picky, but I still do like them, but I'm more discerning than I used to be. So, but like some of the stuff I think like, yeah, this is okay. I probably wouldn't play now if I had better options. So yeah, and I'm also a lot pickier with adventure games now too. Where like if I respect the puzzle, I'll try to figure it out. But if I'm just like I have no idea where they're going with this puzzle, I'm just gonna want to look at a hint for it. So. Okay, well, somebody's talking about a series of. Are you aware of the more famous horror games made in RPG Maker, such as Mad Father, Witch's House, Ib pronounced like Eve? I, I'm undecided if I should honor it because IB, if that's pronounced like Eve, I don't know. I think they need to try harder if they want that to be the name in English. You know, because sometimes there's like colloquialisms that defy normal grammar rules, but they still make sense. Like like I want to say everybody from Louisiana refers to it as like New Orleans, but you know, Northerners can call it New Orleans. But going from B to VE, I don't know. That one's much more of a jump. I've heard of a couple of those, but I mean, the art direction looks pretty good, but I'm really not into anime stuff. So the more hardcore the game goes into anime themes, the less likely I am to want to play it. And this looks like it crosses my threshold there. So okay, so they're looking for weird combos because they mentioned Strife, saying an RPG first-person shooter hybrid that you've played before in Game Dungeon. Do you know of any other games with this type of odd pairing off the top of your head? Well, the chat might know some, but yeah, I'm sure this wasn't Sacrifice like kind of like a third-person RTS hybrid. I think Savage was another one like that, where it's like first-person shooter RTS. Yeah, there's been a few like either like tactical and RTS hybrid or first-person shooter RTS hybrid. What are some other weird half-genre games? Well, I'll be talking a little bit about that in one of the follow-ups. A different one I'll keep under wraps for now. Yeah, I've definitely seen that sort of thing before. It can be cool when it's done right. Well, yeah, I mentioned in one of them, was it Divinity Dragon Commander? That one's kind of like a third-person flight action game slash, 4X-ish strategy game. So yeah, it can work, But yeah, I think it's the sort of thing where I think you really need a vision if you're gonna do a half and half hybrid. Like you can't. It's probably a poor choice to go in an experimental, or yeah, like with Hinterland. That was a action RPG town management hybrid, and I mentioned ActRaiser in that. Yeah, and was it Soul Seraph was a spiritual successor to ActRaiser. Another Mario Nintendo question. How do you feel about the new Mario Kart being open world? And they're asking if I'm considering buying the Switch 2 at launch. No, I can wait. The only thing I'm considering buying at launch is the Pimax Crystal Super. That sounds like it could be the one for me for VR. And now they're even teasing, like just yesterday, an ultra wide variant of it, but it has all the same specs, but it comes at the cost of binocular overlap. And I have no idea if how much I care about binocular overlap, and two, will just the regular wide be fine for me, or will I really like it being even wider in VR? I have no clue. So now I'm very curious about that. For Mario Kart being open world, I guess that's the more I'm way behind on Mario Kart. I mean, I still need to finish the GameCube version. So, what? I think I have the Wii to go through after that. I think there's like one or two after that. So, yeah, there's like a Wii version and there's a Switch version. So, I'm way behind on Mario Kart. But yeah, I guess ask the fans what they think. It's the sort of thing where I could see that going either way. Where I could see it being like, oh, this is fun and like everything's a race course and you just keep going and it's great. Or it might feel like less focused and less special. So I don't know. Ask the more hardcore Mario people. All right, like just conceptually, I could see it either way. Have you played the Stasis games? I played the first one. It was good, but it's not exactly my kind of game because Stasis is what I would call like a pure horror game. Whereas I'm actually not that into horror. What I'm into are scary games. Like I like games that like really try to create. And see, there's a hell of a lot of overlap in scary and horror, but Stasis really feels more like this just about horror. And so it's not my thing as much. Though I remember one scene, I think my favorite scene from it was when you're going through these doors and the ship's malfunctioning or the base. And there's like this really solid industrial looking metal door and it's kind of malfunctioning. It's like boom, 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 boom. And he looks like he's about to go through it. Then it goes like bam. And like it slams shut and then it opens again and it just sticks there. And then you're left wondering, okay, well, is it going to keep going or like, because it slams with enough force that would easily kill you if you were to just walk through it and it just decides to slam shut. So I like the messing with the player like that. That was pretty fun. So I was asking if I played Soma. I played a ways in the Soma and then I kind of gave up on it. I watched the remainder of it. So yeah, it's an interesting concept, but I don't know. That's the other thing is unless it's going. I'm actually struggling to think of examples outside of Silent Hill where this happens. But if a game's like really depressing, that's not my thing either. I feel like Silent Hill takes it to interesting places. Or if you want to count it as one, Max Payne also did a great job of that, where it has depressing overtones to it, but it also has a bit of mirth to it, and of course, just awesome action. So. Okay. Yeah, this is a decent question. Feel free to chime in on this one. They're saying building a PC went from $1,000 to run all the latest games at max settings a few years ago to plainly unaffordable, with entry-level GPU costing more than the 1080 GeForce 1080 MSRP, even when adjusted for inflation. What do you think will be the impact for this? PC gaming market shrinking, video game graphics stagnating as people stick to older hardware, handheld console boom? Have you personally been affected? Man, take your guess how it's gonna go. It is a mess, though. I agree. It's kind of feeling like a time warp in some ways to like the '90s. It got me to look up like what a new Voodoo 2 would cost. But though it's kind of worse than that because that Voodoo 2 could probably run everything at the time. And yeah, in '98 that was I think the price was like $300, and I plugged an inflation calculator on it, and I think it was like around over 600 now. Here, inflation calculator. So yeah, for 600 that would get you like. I think now that would get you mid-range before scalpers. Like, so it's, okay, 99 or 98. They come out, Voodoo, does it come out 98 or 99? Voodoo 2 release. Okay, yeah, 98, okay. So yeah, 300. But yeah, I mean, older computer parts did have a premium. So that okay, 595 today. So yeah, it's kind of worse than a Voodoo 2. It's mostly GPUs, I think, though. Like, I think, I guess I haven't checked lately, but I think you can still get like reasonable prices and performance from like a lot of CPUs and motherboards and RAM and stuff. Maybe not, but I think it's not nearly as bad. Like, especially because I think, especially for gaming, you're not. There's only a few titles you're really gonna see the jump. I'd say most games are GPU bound these days, but yeah, has it affected me? Yeah, I did upgrade last year, and I paid more than I wanted to, but I was afraid if prices were even gonna go higher. And yeah, so now I'm living large on a 3080. I am not touching any of those. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't get much faster than that from NVIDIA because I don't trust any of the cards that use that damn 12 volt high power connector. And so I figured, like, I guess the 4070, you can get versions of it that doesn't use that. That's kind of side grade with the 3080. So it's, yeah, I guess AMD's still offering cards that have like safer connectors, but yeah, they're getting scalped also, and like you said, the mid range, the prices are just bumped across the board. The what the Yeah, actually, for other ways it's affecting me is it's actually gotten me to start researching undervolting. I've never done undervolting before, but now I'm thinking maybe I should because, as I understand it, there's no threat to your hardware. The only thing you're risking is instability while you're testing it. So if you can undo it, essentially. I mean, now I really do like my system stable. So that's the frustrating part is figuring out like what exactly I have to do to kind of be sure it's stable. I've heard the program OCCT is good for that. So maybe if I ran that for an hour and it's undervolted, I can maybe assume it's safe. I heard Quake 2 RTX is another good one to test stability. But with undervolting, it actually increases the longevity of your card, I think, because it's sending less volts. So that's going to be, I guess, less strain on the actual circuitry, but it also lowers the heat if you can pull it off. So yeah, it's got me looking into that because I want this card to last as long as possible. Yeah, so we're talking about switching to AMD. I would, except I feel hostage for kind of AI related stuff, especially CUDA. That's why I was kind of pissed that NVIDIA, had changed the terms of service to not allow CUDA to run, not allow CUDA programs to run on AMD hardware, which I don't think is even legal, but like who has the money to challenge NVIDIA in court on this? And so I think, so now it's actually, I'm actually confused if Zluda would still works for all these programs, or if that got shut down, or it's like one guy maintaining it, or if that's legal, or not legal. So if that's the sort of thing where NVIDIA is going to come after them, or they're going to update CUDA to have poison pills in it so that Zluda won't work on it. Because I mean, they're making me want to jump ship to AMD with that damn connector, especially. So yeah, it's a mess. I mean, I can wait for newer games. I mean, I can wait a long time, but like I have to hope something good is coming. So as far as I know, NVIDIA backpedaled and allowed it. I don't know. I mean, if somebody knows the full story, like as to what like you've researched this, and so as to what's going on with Zluda, like what it can work on, or actually I think it's pronounced differently, but I forget what maybe it's like Polish where it's like Zluda. by all means, email me on that. rosswscott@gmail.com, because I would like to know more on that. Because that's the main thing that's kind of holding me back. There's some other things that be inconveniences, but I think it's at a point now where I could like safely give up NVIDIA, except for like the AI processing. And I could take a speed hit on it, but yeah, I mean, that 12-volt high power connector, that's like end of the line for me. I'm not moving to that unless, God, like I'm trying to think of like how many years would I go if that was like the only option for newer video cards. I'm trying to speculate how many years would I go without a newer video card to just avoid that connector. I think at least 10. So I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm not playing newer games then. I'll really catch up on my older backlog of like every frigging game and just run, less demanding ones. So I mean, I might even go even longer on it, but yeah, because I can live without ray tracing performance. I can. It would kind of it would hurt a bit, but I can live without stuff like DLSS, and just the other upscaling method, because DLSS, the game has to support that in the first place. But maybe there'll be better like generic upscaling methods. Oh, somebody's asking live questions. Okay, I'll try to speed through the remaining ones, see if there's any like real good ones. Well, this isn't a bad one. They're saying, which of the 4 main gods of chaos from Warhammer would you worship if you had to? Or alternately, which one fits your mindset the best? I mean, honestly, kind of none of them. But like if I had to choose one, it would probably be between Slaanesh or Seth. I don't even know how to. I never remember how to spell it. And I never remember how to say it. Okay. So it's like doubly. You know which one I mean? Okay, Cinch. I'm probably still getting it wrong. Cinch. Because Korn is basically just all about violence and destruction. It's like, well, that's not really the core of what I'm about. Nurgle's about just kind of disease, and it's like, yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, disease, slovenly hygiene, that sort of thing. It's like, no, I'd rather not be on that team. Slaanesh is all about, I guess, like pleasure and fulfillment, which I see hedonism essentially. I mean, with especially an emphasis on sexual stuff, but it's hedonism in general. My understanding is broader than that. And that's not really my thing either. I mean, I kind of like deeper pursuits, I guess, than just like raw pleasure. And Siege, okay, Zintak is what people are saying. It is about forbidden knowledge and power and like manipulation, stuff like that. It's like, well, I kind of assume 2 things on forbidden knowledge. One, sometimes it's forbidden for a good reason. So I don't necessarily need to open Pandora's box. And the other time is, let's say it's not, but now you know something like almost nobody else does. Sometimes you can't really use that in a helpful way, and it's just kind of frustrating sitting on things that you can't really talk about with anyone else. So I don't know if I mean things like exploration and like kind of broadening mental horizons and like seeing wonders, that's kind of my thing. So maybe that kind of falls in that camp also, but I don't know. If I have to choose, it'd probably be one of those 2. And yeah, no thank you to Corner Nurgle. So yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, somebody's mentioning that Warhammer has better writing and lore than a money hole game has any right to be. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel about it. Like the writing's like ridiculously good for just a tabletop game, with plastic figurines. So, or I guess they're not always plastic. I guess they're pewter. Huh? So, okay. Okay, I sort of answered some of these. What one's not really? I was saying, what games have you played that had the most unforgettable atmosphere? Hey, here's the thing: when people unless there's like an obvious standout candidate, when people ask me more broad questions like this, in order to really answer it, I'd have to like go through like a list of all these games I know and just kind of like make a short list of it, and then just kind of weigh them against each other to have like a really good answer. But off the top of my head, I just kind of default to stuff I remember a little more, but it's not necessarily the best, But I mean, they're good, so that's why I mention answers you've heard a lot, kind of like, Subnautica, Symphony of the Night, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, or really most 2D Castlevania games. Unreal. I mentioned earlier Forza Horizon 4. It's for a realistic environment. It's perfect for the lighting, the light direction, because I mean I'm sure there's some technicality that these shadows aren't quite as accurate as if it was ray traced or whatever. It looks perfect for my taste. So. I mean, again, I'm sure I'm forgetting lots of games, but with a question like that's I probably if you want better answers, these questions need more votes for next time. Okay, we have a longer question, but they're asking about that 20 important concepts I wasn't taught in business school. Talking about the energy usage. Okay, wait. I think they had a question, though. Oh, yeah, here it is. Makes it seem like if the world economy is running a double borrowed time, borrowing to make expensive oil seem cheap and fracking boom, then... Oh, yeah, okay. It's claiming that the world has effectively begun experiencing shortage of cheap oil in the mid-1980s. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that again. I mean, we had peak discovery, I think, was in the 70s. But I don't think that was peak production. But threw money at the problem, so we don't yet see we are already using oil that's too expensive. That is true, but the time scales, I'm not sure. I haven't checked in a while. Makes it seem like the world economy is running a double borrowed time. Fracking boom then. So yes, I agree with that. And personal guess, the world will be able to borrow time for the third time with the exploration of Arctic reserves, which large countries seem to be highly interested in. Yeah, that's possible. I haven't checked the... Yeah, for that particular avenue, the borrowed time of having cheap energy. Because, yeah, I mean, we're still going to have like a lot of environmental stuff and maybe economic stuff coming home to roost before that. But yeah, maybe. I haven't checked what the reserves are for Antarctica opening up. That's honestly the sort of thing that might start a war, but we'll see. Okay, well, the rest is just a quote. It doesn't look like it's really a question. Okay, so I'll try to keep going faster. Wow, long question. I don't know if I saw this one. Okay, they put too long, didn't read, a rant. Just read the first sentence. Do not go beyond that, or you might find yourself in an infinite loop. I don't know. I'm pretty good at breaking out of loops if they're not truly infinite. If they're truly infinite, then I can get caught. How can we deal with the problem of interaction with large organizations in a meaningful way? Yeah, they're talking about a publisher decides to get rid of some product. It might actually... yeah, okay, I guess that is a bit of a catch-22. You're right. You need collective organization, essentially. And government traditionally is a tool, well, I mean, depends how traditional, how far back you go. But I mean, at least for the past 100 years, or to that it's a tool to kind of break up like that influence and basically use raw numbers of people hating something that a company with a lot of power is doing. Um, I think they're kind of, yeah, I think they're kind of giving it more thought than they need to, though, because they're saying, let's see, you're never dealing with a single personality, which makes me always a bit annoyed when people say Apple wants this thing or Microsoft plans that. Somebody there might, or nobody. No, well, yeah, there is some truth to that because you can have weird projects that get that fall into. But the thing is, it is hierarchical, so somebody has to sign off on it. The bigger a thing it is, and it's going to be somebody's project. And then, like at the CEO level, they have to answer to shareholders. See, I think you kind of go look. I kind of look at most big companies as kind of like a tug of war between basically psychopathic behavior and not trying to have short-term games that are so short-sighted they bankrupt the company. And I think that's the tug of war. And because the shareholders basically just want more money next quarter at any cost. I mean, obviously not every last one, but that's a safe enough generalization. But the thing is, if you actually exercise that to the full degree, then it just hollows out companies like termites and they implode. And that can be fine by some shareholders, but some, they're like, no, I'd rather make money year after year and not absolutely wreck the company. So I think that's the basic tug of war. For like what the consumer almost doesn't play into it unless there's like zero market. They have to make something that consumers will buy for one way or another, but that's about it now. And then sometimes if it has like investor capital, they literally don't even have to care about the consumer at all. So for the problem of interaction with large organizations in a meaningful way, I'd say basically power, have some leverage of power in some capacity. That's pretty much the only way. And that's usually through collective organization of some fashion. Yeah, like if you look, yeah, that's another thing that sometimes people put the cart before the horse. Like with government, if you try to, well, I think it's so compromised now that, I mean, I'm thinking more U.S. government, but that it almost doesn't matter what the candidate says that they want to do. If that goes against what their donors want, then they're not going to do it. But they might give you a good song and dance about how they will. Whereas most change that happens, that government ends up happening, is because there is some outside pressure from it happening, where they have to feel like people are going to riot or something on that level if they don't do something. And that it almost, it matters a little bit, but it almost doesn't matter who's in office at that point if that external pressure is strong enough. But I was talking earlier how it's been so effective at breaking up collective organization that, man, it's difficult. That's one of the reasons. That's actually when I made that. Yeah, two thoughts. And I'll move on. I've heard before how, like, with fracking in some areas, some towns didn't want that because fracking, as I understand it, is one of those things where theoretically, on paper, it's safe and you're not going to have pollution. But in real world practice, there ends up being leaking of like really bad chemicals getting into like the groundwater. And it's like if everything works perfectly, then it's all safe. But then if it's not, then it can really contaminate a lot of areas. And a lot of towns didn't want that. So what I've heard is some oil companies, like out in the Midwest, I've heard they hired counterinsurgency specialists, I think from who had worked in Iraq, to like prevent basically an uprising. Like they knew like which levers to press on, like how to get like counter campaigns going, to like undermine any collective organization, that sort of thing. So when you have forces like that in play, it's like, man, you need a lot of discipline from your organization to like not get essentially undermined by that. And the other thought I had was, that's why when I made that reaction to the, where I explained the European Citizens Initiative in more detail, I was trying to stress that point for anyone who has problems with this. The first question you should ask is, what's the alternative? Because if they don't, because look, I've been trying to find answers for that question for like at least 10 years, probably more. These are the only ones I found. So, if you don't have a better answer to it, you might not be on our side, actually, because then you're just there to tear it down and not build up anything else in its place. And I think that initiative is quite good with the wording on it. So, I mean, and from a literal standpoint, it could use some improvement, but from a strategic standpoint, where we have room to compromise kind of built into the wording, I think it's as good as you could possibly get, just about, for the legal system we're in. So, like, look, I just did not want any of that on my watch, where somebody comes in pretending they're for this, but they're really not, and then they try to like sway a bunch of people in that direction. So I was kind of trying to like inoculate my viewers on that, because that's the question. What's the alternative? And if they don't have any, and then there is no other proposed one, then like if you follow the logic, whether they realize it or not, they're actually against all solutions. Because the only exception to that is if they think they're going to come up with a new solution that hasn't been discovered yet at a later date. And I'm saying we don't have the time window for that. So it really is a logical progression, because, see, that's the other thing, is we're single issue. So you really can, I regret not putting that in the video, because from a logic standpoint, see, if you're following like a platform that encompasses many different things, maybe you really disagree with one platform, but you really agree with another one, you're so on another one. We're single issue. We just want there to be prohibit publishers from disabling a game that you paid for. And this would be making end-of-life plans mandatory for games that require it. That's it. So there's no like wiggle room on like, well, I'm for this, but against this, and then your alternative won't save any games. But you're kind of, so yeah, I was maybe too wary about that. But yeah, I did not want it. I was not going to have this movement like from our own followers undermined, So no, it did come from an external source, unfortunately. Because, yeah, that was kind of an advanced tactic that he did, because, well, okay, I've talked enough about that. Well, okay, I guess I can mention it quick. With Pirate Software, I'm thinking again, I think part of him realized he couldn't change what was written in the document. So if he didn't report what was in the actual initiative itself, somebody would see that and he would get called out on it. So what he did is he changed what we were saying the initiative is about. And he completely made up saying that it was about trying to protect single-player games. That was made up. We never brought that up anywhere. In fact, we had to add that in afterwards and so if you're redefining what the entire movement says it is about, because that takes more effort to verify, and then look at the conclusion that it doesn't match the premise that you made up, well, then now you can frame it like that our wording is vague and like we're not, focused enough on this. This isn't going the right direction. It's dangerous because it spills into areas that we don't want. Except no, none of that's true, because you made up what Stop Killing Games is about. And then, of course, refuses to talk to me, and then deletes the video where he says he refused to talk to me and deletes my comment from that. So, yeah, and then he's a much bigger streamer and YouTuber, so I could only do so much against that. So that is an advanced tactic that he pulled. Yeah, it's... I wasn't expecting... See, I was expecting certain counter arguments because there are some I think that are disingenuous, and then there's some that do have merit to them, but I think they're kind of fringe cases. And I was expecting more like that. I wasn't expecting essentially to be 1984, you know, where like ignorance is strength kind of, yeah, freedom is slavery kind of mentality, where let's just make up what this group says they're trying to do. So yeah, somebody's saying this is representative of all political discourse. Why ask what you believe when we can tell you what you believe and force you to correct us? Yeah, or no, better yet than force you to correct them, be so big your voice doesn't get out there. You can't. Yeah, or I saw one comment that was great. It was saying like, step 1, criticize the movement for not talking to devs. Step 2, as a developer, refuse to talk to them. So yeah. Yeah, somebody's saying nuance to the topic. Absolutely. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunately a weakness of the situation, is that there is a lot of nuance to this because it's such a mess. So, yeah, okay, I got off track with the questions. I'm gonna start skipping some more because it's been going a while. Oh yeah, well, I was kind of curious about this one. They said, hypothetically, it is now only legal for NGOs to produce one model of consumer computer hardware for the next 15 years. What generation of hardware will you choose for this? Like, well, NGOs don't, like would that, is the hypothetical scenario that would be the law that manufacturers can only produce one type of hardware? Or because I don't, or would the NGOs only use one model of consumer computer? I don't know. That would be. I mean, I guess you'd want just kind of like the most stable thing you could get. That's like a balance between like power efficiency versus performance. Because if it needs to be for everybody, then you can't really have like the highest end gaming stuff. It's not. I mean, you can, but it's not as good a use of resources, because then grandma checking your email, she doesn't need a 5090, you know? So. Okay, yes, I answered this earlier. I haven't played Dragon's Dogma because the atmosphere just kind of, what I saw of it gave me kind of a blah feeling. I'm sure the game's great. A lot of people have given it, I mean, it's a cult classic and it got a sequel. So he's asking if I have opinions about services like Incogni, Aura, Delete Me, and they allegedly remove information from the internet about you being sold to marketers. I have no idea. You should probably talk to somebody a lot more technical about that. My guess, if I had to guess, is they probably help, but there's no escaping it, your footprint, if somebody really wants it. Okay, this is a longer question. Oh yeah, they're saying how video game soundtracks capture escapism unlike other soundtracks do, in their opinion, because there's something in the world building aspect. Yeah, it's so varied. In fact, I may have a breakthrough on my organization system, but I don't have time to get into it this time. Maybe a future chat. Okay, they want to. Do you know of any soundtracks that you love that give you the same imaginative sense of immersion and fantasy that your favorite video game soundtracks do, but in TV, film, animation, etc. soundtracks? Well, maybe not the same variety, but yeah, shoot, I have to think about it. Sorry, what were like the best movie soundtracks that really? Well, okay, just this isn't like the best, but it's just one that popped in my head. The soundtrack to Shadows of the Empire, Star Wars. That one definitely helps with world building because it has it has distinct themes, but that's basically a soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist. It's a soundtrack to a book, so you have to kind of imagine what it was made for. And there's some more though. So there's a lot. Okay. Do you believe we're going to have any kind of info from Valve about Half-Life X this year? Ask Tyler from Valve News Network. I have no idea. What would be the best advice to move in a foreign country? I personally try to look for volunteering, working first, and learn some language of the place. But what would be the next step once you feel enough familiarity? Well, just figuring out have a plan for how to tackle the paperwork, because it's unlikely you'll be able to figure it all out remotely. So figure out someone else you could talk to that could like really take you through all of it. That'll probably be the essential part. I mean, shoot, if you know the language or learn some language, the next step, I mean, just basic needs, be able to have a place to live, know where to get food, get around. What are your thoughts on drugs and alcohol? Well, drugs is, if they're for medicine, then I really need them, then yeah, take it. For, I guess, recreational drugs, I think a lot of it really depends on your personality. For me, I wouldn't be interested in drugs unless I thought it would, two things. One, it's something that it brought me to a state of mind I liked, and I could basically maintain it indefinitely. I mean, not like continuous, but like, you do it this week, it works. Do it next week, it still works. That sort of thing. And two, it's not harming me in some way in the long term. Like my brain, as you can see, my neurons aren't always the best as it is. So I'd rather not add to that. And with a lot of recreational drugs, I have no idea what they do to you in the long term. And some I've heard they can definitely mess you up. Like I've heard ecstasy can kind of burn out the pleasure centers in your brain. I'm thinking, yeah, I'd rather not have that. For alcohol, it's kind of a similar attitude, except we kind of know alcohol is not that great for you. I mean, in terms of your health in the long term. I've tried it before kind of as an experiment. I might have like a little bit as like a social thing, but I basically don't drink. Yeah, it makes you care about it less, so that's something. Yeah, I could see wanting that, but I don't know. It just didn't have enough appeal. It didn't have enough appeal to me to make a habit out of it, and I'm probably better off because of that. So I don't really need to add being an alcoholic to my list of problems. Okay, I haven't played Vangers. That one might be more weird than I want, but I can maybe check it out sometime. Well, somebody's asking my personal theory about the identity of the G-Man. And I haven't thought that deep into it, actually. I guess I don't really... I might come up with some theories in Freeman's mind, So he's asking about pick up streaming more during the movie break. Well, it's not going to be a break, really. That's the thing. It's just going to be it's actually going to be kind of an intense shift in focus of what I'm focused on. So no, I don't plan on streaming more, but I'll still do the monthly one. Okay, I'm almost at the end. So you can start doing @Ross Broadcast for live questions. I have not read Blood Meridian. Somebody's asking if I would cover American Truck Simulator. Maybe. Yeah. I have to try it out first. I'll probably wait on VR. I'm actually more interested in Euro Truck Simulator because most of the American Truck Simulator packs are like far west out in the desert or wasteland, which I'm not keen to go see more of. But there's been some in the Midwest or maybe like, do they have any for like Northern California or something? So if there's more vegetation, then I'm down for it. So he's asking, how do I like to play Minecraft? I haven't played it in a long time. I guess I just did normal level. Okay, I'm going to skip a few more. Okay, so I'm saying they don't watch the streams usually. I don't blame you. Okay, well, they're asking if I had an opportunity to make one game. This is another thing I need. To give you a better answer, I need a lot of time to think about it. Okay, and the last one. Okay, this is a long question. I just, if it's just a hypothetical thing, I might skip it. But if it's actual confusion about stop killing games, I should answer it. Okay, well, I should probably answer it. It seems serious. Well, I mean, not like super serious, but not a joke. Okay, a small-scale game developing company may have issues with the passing of a law that obliges to either provide a server indefinitely. Well, one, no one's asking for that. So I'll stop you right there on that part. Nothing in the movement is asking for that. The initiative is not asking for that. And you know what? The EU Commission isn't going to ask for that, even if it mutated, because the industry would be saying no, and the consumers would be saying no. So everybody would be, and that's not realistic. So everybody would be saying no. Okay. Or, so I guess there's just one option, to develop an option for the game to use local servers. Well, yeah, that one has a possibility. It could be more complex than that. But yeah, okay, okay, at face value, the initiative would call for that, but if it's compromised on to give more to industry, then repair instructions would also be acceptable. They're saying, at least that is what the director of one of such companies told me. Well, yeah, well, he's already misunderstanding it because the first half was never on the table at all. The argumentation is keeping up the servers and or developing the game functionality to be allowed by local servers after the end of support costs too much money and effort and time that a small company cannot afford while producing games. Okay, he might be correct if it's while they're producing the games. You know, if we're talking about, because if they're already maintaining it and the game was never designed for that, yeah, that could be an onerous cost on that. We're not trying to deny that. However, we're talking about games that haven't been, largely talking about games that haven't been made yet. So you're saying you cannot design a new game that you have not started yet to have an end of life plan by, you know, and you plan to sell it after 2027 or something like that. That's where it's, well, one, the person misunderstood, had a big misunderstanding right off the bat. So they might misunderstand other aspects of it. If that is true, and there is an exception from obligations for smaller companies, is there an exception from obligations for smaller companies? We have no such one planned, but but that could be a negotiating standpoint where smaller companies might be allowed to kill games, which would really kind of work against them in the long term because that would give larger companies more power. But like if your studio like only earns X amount of dollars, then you're not on the hook for it. I mean, or I don't know, that don't kind of encourage a gambling mentality though. But no, if like the industry came back and they said like, no, we have to have an exception for game studios that have, like, let's say less than 20 employees or 50 employees or something. If that's the only way we get it through, then that would still save that would still save double digits amount of games. And again, two aspects of that. One, most indie developers aren't doing this because that's an extra cost and burden on them anyway. Usually it's kind of, not always, but there's a correlation between, for indie devs that require online only, between games that are kind of money grabby, money grubby, that they're trying to nickel and dime you. Again, not saying it's 100% like that, but I've seen. Now, once you get into like big scale games, then you get a little bit more variety in it, but they're the ones that could afford it easily. And plus, I'd like to mention again, if this did become a known requirement, I think it would be a gold rush for middleware developers to come up with a solution for those small companies to say like, hey, you need an end of life plan? Well, if you use our software for networking and internet protocols, then it's only takes a few clicks and you can have an end of life build whenever you want. And that'll be the path of least resistance then. So I understand why people don't think of that, but it can be kind of frustrating when people are just can't even imagine that once it's been explained to them. They're like, what you're saying it's almost like if everything was still using buggy whips for, like everything was drawn by horses and we were coming out with cars and they were asking like, well, how are you going to have comfortable seats on these cars if they're real stuff and rigid and we already have like a good saddle market? And I'm trying to explain, well, there would be a new market based on the demand. So it's like, I get that people didn't think of that, but it's frustrating when people just don't even believe it. It's like, how unimaginative are you, as a developer, like, okay. So yeah, sorry, okay, so I'll back up to live questions. What's your prediction for humans, Earth, and space in the 2500s? Writing a sci-fi, man, that's too far out. If you remember the first episode of Game Dungeon, it said hundreds of years in the future. It said something like, yeah, why not if we're not extinct by then? I mean, also, please say more about Flash Gordon. Just watched last night, and it was weird. And all the maturing content. Yeah, my mother wouldn't let me watch it when I was a kid. I saw like snippets of the throne room, and that was it. Like I had to leave the room, So. No, I haven't played Balatro. It's not really top of my list of games because I'm sure it has great gameplay, but from what everybody says, but I'm not really into just exotic poker. I can think of a lot more games for my taste I'd rather play, that I haven't tried yet. What got you into using ESDF? The keys. I noticed that during Realms of the Haunting videos, he was using ESDF, but it's hotkey. My friends always think it's weird when I take my time to configure my bindings around that. Oh, it's because there are more keys I can hit. Like my left two fingers aren't doing anything. They're doing a lot less if I'm on WASD because you have what? Yeah, you have tab, caps lock, shift, and maybe control there. Whereas if you have all of that and QAZ and maybe like, yeah, so it's just more keys. And it felt a little bit better because like the keys aren't quite aligned, perfectly. It's like shifted and that arrangement felt a little bit better for me. Okay. I still don't understand what kind of movie you're making. The chat can tell you. I've talked about that before. What, man, how do I, yeah, you see what's happening on the video here. I can't read the question even. Okay, whatever. What games have fantastic openings that had you immediately? Um, I haven't played Nier Automata. Let's see. Half-Life. I haven't played Atomic Heart. I'm trying to think of like that just grabbed me immediately. Uh, well, I mentioned that Realms of the Haunting starts off really solid. Clive Barker's Undying does. What are some other ones? Um, yeah, because some. This is one I have to think about. Again, it's the sort of thing where if I looked at a list, I could go through it in my head, then think, oh yeah, that one, that one. Yeah, my wife's knocking on the door, so I should wrap this up soon. Okay. Have you considered growing a wizard-sized long beard? Um, not really. I don't know if I would look any better in that. Okay, I'm kind of going backwards here. What's your opinion on China's rising influence over the gaming market? With all the West industry poor decisions and China filling that hole. I'm optimistic. I mean, yeah, was it? I think it's pronounced Huawei. They're I think officially not allowed to use Windows anymore in their licenses, or that's happening this year. And they're working on an alternate. They're working on an alternate operating system. It's not Linux based. Harmony OS, I think. I mean, see, Microsoft has had so much entrenchment, and they honestly scare me with how they're operating because I feel like at some point the hammer is going to drop where you cannot use Windows without having an active internet connection, and they're going to force updates that haven't been thoroughly tested. And I think for regular users, it's kind of mostly there already. For power users, it's not. But I mean, Microsoft's scaring me with that. And so much depends on Windows. I mean, you know, I've said before, I'm envious of Linux users where Linux meets all their needs. Like, they don't feel like they're giving up anything by using Linux. And my use case is totally not like that. So the more people that get on other platforms, the better, because that increases the odds of an alternative emerging, or you know, compatibility layers and that sort of thing, where you can actually get off Windows. So, you know, sure, take a swipe at it. You know. It was so horny and why it was rated PG. I don't know what you're talking about. It's probably a reference that I missed. Oh, Flash Gordon, yeah. Uh, yeah, he was pushing it for a PG rating. Yeah, you're right. There's another game. There was another movie that did that. I was trying to, where it seemed like they were really kind of pushing the envelope for it. Does your wife still want the drawing of you? I wasn't aware she wanted a drawing of me. So I don't really want a drawing of me, but if she really wants it, I guess she. Well, her Twitter, yeah, I guess she's on Blue Sky more now. Amazing Magda. I set up a Blue Sky account, but I haven't really bothered that much with it. I'm kind of waiting for the critical mass to shift. So if enough people switch to Blue Sky, then I'll be on Blue Sky. What would you say are the most effective ways to get through the people who seem to be misunderstanding Stop Killing Games? There are too many people hearing different things from what the initiative is actually saying. Wonder if you had insight on this. At this point, I'd say you're probably talking to them in English. At this point, that's probably, yeah, we mentioned diminishing returns earlier. I think we're well into diminishing returns in English for anything other than a big, large YouTuber. So I think that's a good place to end it. And rolling back to earlier of people saying PewDiePie should talk about this. I think that's a great place to end it. So thanks for showing up. Videos are coming. So, see ya.